Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 3, Episodes 18 through 22. So there's going to be a lot more comparisons going on in these episodes than probably a lot of other things. So I apologize for me being long-winded here. Because this is to have to go on and compare Catherine to a lot of things going on in the season. There's going to be a lot of comparisons going on with these episodes with stuff that has happened in the series so far and everything. So, with that said, it's really interesting how Catherine, when she's brought in, is so much of the focus and how they're doing really good things with this character compared to three other people that were brought in and you completely forgot they were there for the longest effing time. Rocky had basically nothing going on with him up until a certain point of more recently. And how many episodes did we have this character for? Good grief. Eventually, they really had a huge pattern of episode or huge amount of momentum of episodes going on with Aisha. Just like, oh, you finally care about this character now? And then Adam ends up getting the one-off Lantern episode. It's like, oh, great. Other than me having to just figure out how he's still like the best Ranger ever at some point, because of just like all these things here and there, where he's like the wild card. He's kind of getting used everywhere. But now he's just the guy that shuffles off with Billy to just do some science experiment. So Catherine and Tommy, we have to now go on and say who did it better. Even though we also have to say that Catherine is basically the new Scorpina. Because if you look at Golar's vice versa, Catherine is who got on and made her hooks into Tommy, like Scorpina at one point had gone on to try and date Adam, and then there was a reveal that it was Scorpina, and then eventually we find out that Scorpina is Dunzo. So, but Catherine going on and being the new equivalent of Evil Ranger because she turns into a monster, so that's kind of like morphing. Catherine is to go on and be interesting how they're playing her out because she's actually starting to become further and further we get along here. She's starting to be conflicted, and I find that to be interesting. Like, Catherine is to go on and not be as vicious as Tommy was when he was the bad guy, to where if the Rangers were to have gone on and been revealed that Catherine was the bad guy all along, the Rangers would be, I think, a lot more shocked than when there was the reveal of Tommy being the bad guy all along, and they were shocked, and I didn't understand at all why. And like, dude, he was a D-bag from day one. Like, how could you have not have figured that out? How could you have not have figured that out? But whatever. Like, I guess they were just in their brains, just like, well, hey, no, like we could have never thought it was him. And it just doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, so, but it would be interesting to have a lot of people kind of debate on if Tommy or Catherine was better. Yeah, we have to realize that, like, that Tommy was a Power Ranger and had his own Zord, uh, and yeah, there, of course, had Tommy go on and take down the Rangers a lot more so than Catherine, whereas Catherine, immediately already in this two-parter that she's in, like, she immediately just gets taken down already and sliced, and she's treated like any monster that has ever been a thing. But it is just kind of interesting to just kind of see her play out here, even though she's kind of treated as like a Scorpina like character, and she's being a scout for Rita and Zed to basically show how lazy that those characters have become, to where their laziness can go on and build to them finally coming up with an actual plan to put in place for once with the whole Zordnia thing. So the changing of the Zord thing, yeah, like there is obviously some things that are very familiar, but I honestly think that changing of the Zords was the best thing going from this season so far as a story arc going on. Even though it probably has a lot of filler in it, I was so entertained. But again, here's the familiar. So Zed coming into the command center is like the Green Ranger coming into the command center. Same thing. Zed goes into the command center and is to tell the Rangers what his plan is, and he could have just done that in the viewing globe. Just more time wasted. We have in the changing of Zords where Zed goes on and he knows about Zordnia, and he comes up with the plan of getting these Zords to give the Rangers to force them to destroy Angel Grove themselves, which, wow, that is actually a brilliant plan. But how exactly do they get the Rangers forced into doing this? Well, Zed just likes to go on and he likes to kidnap people. Like, we'll find out that in Turbo, Divatox just likes to plant explosives, whereas Zed likes to go on and kidnap people and take them to dark dimensions. Like, of course, eventually Jason would go to the dark dimension to try to escape. Billy will go on and go to the dark dimension and try to escape. So many people over and over and over again will try to make their way and to be trapped in the dark dimension to need to try to escape, and this will be no different. So again, familiar but different. So Tommy will go on and make his way to a dark dimension to try to rescue Kimberly, and it'll be just like when Jason had to try to recover the green candle. Because of course they bring back the portals for Tommy to go to and try to rescue Kimberly. So that was quite a bit of fun of just kind of reflecting back on all of those things of the past, but it's also rinse and repeat, and it's kind of lazy writing. Like, I hate to keep continuing to bring that up. But god, like, because I think about it, because these writers, like, had been on the show for a longevous amount of time, and I'm just like, how? Like, is it just that they had wrote just something better than someone, like, but again, we have to realize, I have to just keep reiterating this, that writing a show is really hard. It's really hard. Yeah, when you go on and you do the exact same just stuff over and over, yeah, it's really hard now, isn't it? Just rinse and repeat and just call it a day. But I guess a lot of the writers are like, well, hey, no one noticed during the time, but I'm sure looking back on it now, when you can binge these episodes over and over and over again, like, yeah, like, people could spot the differences now, but they probably couldn't have back to then. Anyways, so, but now let's go on and let's talk about the rinse and repeating going on. So, within these episodes, we come to find that Tommy is punching a punching bag. I don't think that there is no way that a scene like this really could go on and be anywhere familiar, right? Because Tommy goes on and he punches away at this punching bag as I think Adam and Rocky are there next to Tommy, away, as Tommy goes on to say, ooh, I can't wait to get my hands on that Lord Zed. Am I getting a little deja vu here? Man, if only there was a time in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers where a certain character would be punching a punching bag and saying, ooh, I can't wait to get my hands on that Green Ranger. And Zach would turn to said character called Jason and be like, away. Yeah, doesn't seem so familiar. I'm not getting a hint of any kind of deja vu going on whatsoever in the show. No, 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 no. Anyways, so I have to bring it up. I have to be fair as possible. So we also go on and we're basically finding out that between the times where Kimberly is to be sleeping and to be acting like a log, because we're getting to a point where Kimberly now has to basically be peace conferenced out, and man, are they really stretching out her goodbye. Which that is nice that they're spending so much time with this character instead of just dumping her off. Or like at least she's still on the show and she is doing some important things or enough important things. But Kimberly is being very much like Tommy here, if you really think about it, with him being the Green Ranger. So Tommy would go on to eventually start losing his powers, grabbing at his chest. Oh, I'm losing my power. Yeah, Kimberly is now Tommy. Oh, I'm losing my powers. So, but at least Tommy seemed to, even when he was losing his powers, to seem to be fairly successful. But then again, maybe I'm wrong about that. Whereas Kim, when she loses her powers, like she goes on one mission and just immediately just like donut holes that one on the scoreboard. So that is kind of just like really. I don't know how many times that Tommy has been to have lost his powers, and he still had at least a successful mission here and there. But Kimberly, yeah, donut hole on the scoreboard. So we go on, and we do have the follow that cab episode, and the thing that bugs me about this episode is we have Rito in the very beginning that comes up with the whole plan about how to have a Ranger become a monster and have the Rangers face off against that. Which, that sounds like a good idea, but what they do instead is have one of the Rangers being captured by a monster as the monster is to be this cab, and then Zed and Rita end up turning the cab into a monster, and that's not the same exact freaking thing. Because the first idea would have been with that Rito had would have been a lot cooler, would have been more interesting instead of like if they would have gone with like King for a Day here with Kimberly, that would have been more interesting, but they didn't go that route. They basically went with like, okay, trap Kimberly in this monster, like they've kind of done before with the Samurai Fan Man, where she was like stuck in that bottle. Or also like this episode was kind of similar to when Bulk and Skull and Kimberly were caught in that plane when her uncle goes to sleep, and now Kimberly needs to fly the plane. Like this kind of feels just like that episode. And like it is really goofy how we have to consistently go back to Bulk and Skull and Kimberly and like, whoa, we're just seeing a lot of that. I'm like, God, this is so stupid. This is stupid. But I guess yet another way to try to figure out how to have Kimberly or Amy Jo Johnson do the simplest of shit and not have to pay her much, because they probably could not have. And probably just kind of do her away just off camera, and just to kind of reuse these scenes and sequences so very much often throughout the episode, just to remind you, hey, Kimberly's still on this table, she's still losing her powers, oh, she's gonna die. Anyways, so that way they could just probably pay her less, right? Because Catherine's coming in, and so yeah, they had to probably pay Amy Jo Johnson less because of new character. When they were already paying so many people less because this show was cheap. Anyways, so we also, within Follow That Cab, we end up getting the shark cycles, which I'm like, how do the shark cycles connect to the animal rangers? None of them are sharks. Not a single iota of any one of them. It would have been better if we had the alien rangers here from Aquitar. Then the shark cycles would have been a heck of a lot more of making sense. But, like, God. What? Why is there shark cycles? Like, if anything, you could have gone on and just made them just regular cycles that just looked really cool. But also, like, when you really think about it, like, sharks have Shark Week. Like, sharks are really popular. So I think that's why they were just kind of forced to do these shark cycle things, even though there was no shark cycle to connect with any of these rangers, because not a single one of them was a shark ranger. God dang it! Like, because again, in my mind, I have an agenda about that whole thing. Because of course, if you've seen the banner of this YouTube channel, you would go on and know that I had a. I don't know. I'll probably change the YouTube banner, so maybe that is a wasteful effort for me to talk about it. But I had an idea for a Shark Ranger. I know you can talk about Wild Force and other things. I've said this in the past, so I'm kind of just beating a dead horse by saying this. I apologize for that analogy, but it's true. So being an unalive horse, my apologies. Anyways, so yeah, but I'm just like, it's a shirt cycle without a shark. Anyways, so but anyways, but with Mighty Morphin, I would have changed a lot. Believe me, there have been a lot of cool ideas that they still have never done on the show that I think would have been interesting. But yeah, I'm not going to be part of this writing staff. Whatever they're doing in Disney, like, will probably not be the same thing that I ever thought of, and and eventually, whatever they're going to do with Power Rangers is going to probably end up being just like, okay, like, this is just not going to be what eventually I'm going to be satisfied by. But I'll probably watch it anyways, because I'll have to. Or I'll feel obligated to, or I'll have the fear of missing out. So, we go on and we have by the end of the episode where Zed goes on and blames Rita for the plan going bad. I'm like, wait a minute, it was Rito's plan all along. Not Rita's, it was Rito's plan. Like, this is basically the equivalent of Hercules, where he goes on and he is to just be like, this is not my world, disappointed! And it's like, he was supposed to look disappointed, but he screams out the word disappointed. Zed yells at Rita when it was actually Rito who did the whole planning. It's just like, I guess, just upset by sibling, right? Like, since you're in that family, I'm going to be upset with you instead of the actual person I should be upset with. Anyways, so, but I guess technically there is, like, Rito had that original plan, and then they maybe morphed it into eventually Rita going on and with Catherine's information kind of coming up with something. Yeah, like, so maybe Rita's to blame, but let's try to figure out who was to blame in this episode. Let's try to figure it out. Anyways, so with that said, I think it's about that time to just push into full-on spoilers and to break this whole thing down. Because I think further and further when I get into these episodes, there might be something that popped in there that I obviously didn't say here. Because there's a lot of stuff that I can go on and really break down here. And there might be some stuff that I reiterated that I said in the beginning here, so I apologize if I'm kind of going back to that same well again. Uh, I really did like these episodes though. They were really interesting. Well, like where they're going with wrapping up Kimberly's story is to go on and be some good telly here. So changing of the Zords. That three-parter is to actually surprisingly be like the best thing going in this season so far. So I'm not going to go on and I'm not going to recap the top 10 episodes. You can go on and check that out in a number of other reviews at this point. But Changing of the Zords is the best thing of this season so far. So I would recommend Changing of the Zords. And then also, like, if you're not exactly watching all these episodes like all together from this whole season, then uh like you're probably not going to go on and understand how I feel about these episodes because you may have not gone on to watch this whole entire season. Um and some people may go on and not really get what I'm saying here because maybe they haven't watched the whole season. So I honestly feel that watching this whole season kind of does matter to get your opinion, probably compared to so many other things in the past. But I'm also going on and I'm sharing the stuff of the past that is to conflict with this stuff so you can much more understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about all of it and going on and critiquing all of it. So, with that said, it's about that time to finally, because I had tried this a number of different times, and every single time I was to just kind of get a little point of confused, or I didn't know what I said, and so it's just like, oh my god, like I don't think I'm gonna get this kind of done and over with, because it was just such a mouthful of all to say, and so with that said, let's go on and let's cover these episodes because it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil these episodes. Let me know in the comments below how you probably felt about these episodes. Maybe you hated them. Maybe you loved them. Maybe you were indifferent by them. Maybe you just wanted to go on and look at them and just be like, and call it a day. I don't know. But at least we're still going on and covering more Power Rangers episodes. I apologize how long it takes for me to go on and do another one of these, but in all honesty, right now, like I just have like this huge honking list of stuff that I want to try to get um reviewed. And so at some point I will probably go on and cover soon like Mission Impossible 2. I will cover this stuff that I was planning on covering months ago probably or a month ago. To finally have be on this channel. Um, and like I'm really having quite a bit of fun with all the stuff that I'm kind of putting on here, regardless of how well it does. It was kind of fun for me to finally talk about Star Trek for how uh, much of a fan I was and how long I'd been waiting to get to cover that stuff. Uh, because I had to wait for stuff from Timu to come in. I had to wait to get certain shirts. I had to wait to get certain things. And now that I have those things, now I can go on and do those reviews and cover those things and hope that that will be maybe an upswing to the channel if nothing else will. But also, I was very surprised on the last Power Rangers review that actually did really well because I'm like, wow, like something that wasn't a thumbnail that had Tommy on it, like, is doing surprisingly well. That's weird. But like, I don't want to say at all that is probably based on any of those episodes. Maybe it was the thumbnail. I don't know. Either way, I appreciate anybody going on and checking out that review because, like, it justifies me keep coming back into these projects and keep going into Power Rangers. Uh, Regardless of how long winded it takes between both reviews. It takes like a week or 2 weeks. I'm sorry, but like I'm telling people that that I don't hate Power Rangers, and I'm telling people that I don't feel obligated to do Power Rangers. I don't really secretly hate it, and so that's why I wait so long. No, it's just I'm like, okay. Once I do Power Rangers, I'm like, oh, thank God. Now I'm done with that. So so then I can do all these other projects, and then once I feel the itch again, I come back to this. So yeah, so it's I don't hate this. It's okay, it's a nice relief to kind of scratch that itch, and then uh go into some of these other projects and then come back to it all right, um I still feel good with the show, all right, and then I'll go back into other projects, and it's kind of like that momentum of okay, let's keep, because I'm also just kind of really forced to also just really experiment right now. I'm really needing to experiment. um so yeah, that's the whole crux of kind of what's going on in the channel. So I'm just being very honest and forthcoming with everybody. So thank you for watching this, because I do appreciate it. So uh so let's go on our way to breaking down these episodes. I may need to probably pause here to get to the point of where I need to start here. So let me do that right now. All right. So now we are on to A Ranger Catastrophe Part 2. So via the last review, I'd gone on to cover Part 1. So feasibly at all, if you're going on and needing a last time on Power Rangers, just check out that last review. I'll go on and I'll talk about a Ranger Catastrophe and how I felt about it. The first one. Again, this second parter is to kind of be kind of deflating compared to the first. But anyways, so we make our way into the command center. Rocky is to go on and be asking, it's well, hey, we got to do something. They're watching on the viewing globe that Tommy and Catherine are stuck into this dimensional wormhole of a thing, and there's nothing for them to do because all they can do is just watch on right now. So Billy is going on and asking Alpha, is there a way to lock in on Tommy? And as Alpha is consistently asked by Billy or Kimberly if there's something for Alpha to do, Alpha is well, hey, I tried that. I'm doing that. I can't get anything to go through. Nothing is working. So I'm sorry, I'm trying everything that I can. It's just not going to work. So in the viewing globe, we see Catherine and we see Tommy, and we find that Tommy is to be knocked unconscious, and all of a sudden the feed of this dimensional wormhole is all of a sudden lost by the Rangers. And of course, we go to the go-to, Alpha, do something! Alpha, hit more buttons! That's the always go-to joke that I have in the show, because, what is Alpha supposed to do? Alpha is supposed to be the cat that's on the piano, where the cat is just pam 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 pam. Is Alpha just supposed to do that now? That's the thing that I go to. It's just what do they expect? What do they expect from Alpha? Alpha is not a magician, nor so is Zordon. There's gonna be a magician mentor that's down the road somewhere. But yeah, that's not Alpha and that's not Zordon. How they could just easily just snap their fingers and this person just comes back to them. Anyways, so they realize how, since now they no longer have that feed, it's going to be a lot harder to figure out where Catherine and Tommy headed to. So the next thing we see is back to the dimensional wormhole like thing. And Tommy is now, he's knocked out. He's kind of like Kimberly has been through a good chunk of these episodes. And Kimberly, instead of now, or Kimberly, Kat, instead of now thrust it onto Tommy's shoulder, she's like, ah, like, yeah. And so she ends up looking around, and then she ends up teleporting off. So here's the interesting thing. So we have this cat in the show, and this cat is like the coolest cucumber that I would ever go on and think a cat to be, for how often they're using this cat on the show. Is there ever, like, was there ever like a deleted scene where this cat was to have gone on and either been so afraid, or that this cat would go on and would claw anybody? Because I'm like, man, like, this cat is being so grabbed by people, and like, you would think that like this cat, like being around like goofy characters like Zed and Rita, you would think that this cat would be flipping out. But no, like, this cat is just so easygoing, and it's so interesting to just see a cat that just acts like this. That she's just like, like, this cat is such a log. It's like, man, whoever was to have gone on and trained this cat to do all this stuff and just like, hey, just lay like a log, like, man, like, whoever that trainer is. Because, yeah, this cat is so easygoing, it's kind of strange. So, like, I was almost thinking at some points that this cat isn't really real. So, Rita goes on and she takes the cat in her, like, in her arms, and is now petting it. And so, Rita's saying how Catherine, or Cat, is such a good kitty. And so they're saying how good that she is, that they'll end up giving her another saucer of milk. Hopefully they actually feed this cat. Hopefully they give her some like fancy feast or something. Like, come on. Like, give her some food. Like, good grief. Like, I think Ernie had given her some chili at some point in the youth center, right? But like, man, it just seems like they just give this cat milk and nothing else. Like, I've yet to see any kind of cat food whatsoever on this show so far. But anyways, it's also funny to see that they have guest starring Catherine Sutherland. She's a guest star. Anyways, so uh, so since Rita and Zed realize, hey, we have the White Ranger here, we might as well go on and we might as well do something with him, right? Like, we might as well figure out somebody that is going to go on and just beat the crap out of him, right? And here's where Goldar comes in, and so Golar's like, let me destroy the White Ranger. I have a score to settle. And it's like, yeah, like, it's got to be Goldar. And plus, also, when you actually look at Goldar's face, it looks like the traditional looking Goldar instead of the fugly, ugly, other looking Goldar mask that I honestly hate. So at least Goldar here looks a lot less horrific, and and it looks like more of the traditional Goldar that actually looks good for once. So, and then when eventually he turns, back to horrible face. God dang it! You guys just could not be consistent with that Goldar. Just some laughable stuff going on here. So Rita and Goldar are going, so Rita and Zed are telling Goldar to go on and have his fun. And so as he walks away, just so Zed is going on and saying, okay, so now about that cat, Rita. About that cat. So we now cut to Goldar, and he is to make his way into Tommy, who is still unconscious. Goldar is stating claim that this time he will be victorious in his face-to-face bout with Tommy. I'm sorry, Goldar, but I don't think that you've gone on and checked the numerous scoreboard between you and Tommy. The odds have been stacked against your favor, dear sir. And I say that because, of course, it is to be a reference of the Hunger Games, and the one who goes on and says the odds will stacked against, or the odds will be forever in your favor, is to go on and be Rita, who is in the more recent movie, and Goldar. Wow, am I smart? God, this is stupid. I have to see how, let's pat myself on the backside a little bit more right now. Anyways, so now at the command center. So the Rangers are trying to figure out how to get to Tommy, but of course, they're getting nothing. They're getting donut holes. So the Rangers are being told that Rito is wreaking havoc upon Angel Grove. So the Rangers are all forced to morph. The Rangers are forced to morph, and I guess they do not realize that Rito is massively giant of a man of a monster. But again, like, I guess when you really think about it, it's not like the Rangers are going to be calling out for their Zords at the command center. No, they're going to have to go out in the field, they're going to have to morph, and then they're going to call for their Zords, so that we can just milk out more time of this of this episode now, can we? So, but I honestly, like, compared to all, like, the big monster and the Rangers, like, here, like, the commentary back and forth between them is actually pretty fun here. So, because Rito goes on and he, like, blows this, like, fog-like substance, or in this case, his breath, and the Rangers are kind of blown away here, and they're like, oh my god, his bad breath. So, like, we're doing, like, the classic bad guy thing where the bad guy has to be smelly. So we go on, and the Rangers eventually all call for their Zords 12 years later. And it's kind of interesting here because instead of quickly the Zords all forming into the Ninja Megazord, the Zords are all separate here. And we see that that the Bearzord goes on and takes its, like, front legs and just, like, goes up and just does this slam down move. Like, I'm thinking that they're going on and they're doing this specific stuff to probably sell the Zords separately. But then also, like, well, hey, we're gonna eventually sell the Megazord, right? But, like, but yeah, it is kind of interesting at some points where you see the Zords are separated and they have their own attacks. Instead of just going right into, like, hey, let's just quickly go to the Megazord. And yeah, so, like, that's honestly the thing that I kind of liked, I think, about the Zord parts a lot more. I honestly wish in Power Rangers that they could have done that a lot more often. I would have liked for them to have gone on and had more episodes where it's like you have to, like, work to get to the Megazord. Like, yeah, have all the Zords separately, and they maybe defeat a monster, or maybe defeat two monsters. And then eventually you go on, and then in the third episode, yeah, you get to the Megazord then. But change it up. not have it be so much so focused on the Megazord part, but like I get it. Like the Megazord thing is a big seller, and also like you gotta show all the bells and whistles and all the things that the Megazord can do. And then eventually in the later seasons, it's like, well, all we give a about is just the Megazord part and how it can just have so many combinations, so many bells and frickin' whistles, and just all the goofy crap that just no longer makes any sense anymore with Megazords. And it's just like, how does that make it a much more powerful Megazord anymore? It doesn't make any sense. Like it's just the same Zord, but just with a different color scheme. But it's to say it's more powerful somehow. I just don't get it. Uh, and then eventually they go on the Ultra Zords and the super awesome, delicious Megazord and whatever the heck else. The Pimp Megazord. What else? The Pimp Ultra Zord. What are you gonna do that day this week? Whatever. So anyways, back to this episode, because I got a little tangent there. I apologize. Adam goes on, and he, instead of going on and whipping out his tongue and grabbing on to Rito and having him fall over or something, oddly enough, we have the Toad Zord that ends up having a flamethrower coming out of his mouth. I'm like, huh? Like, okay, like this is kind of cool. But also, I'm just like, flames coming out of the Toad's mouth. I'm like, okay, whatever that is. But hey, at least he's doing something with his mouth. It's not a tongue, though. We have the Crane Zord that ends up doing some blasting here. We then end up having the Ape Zord that ends up coming in, and he ends up kind of putting his two swords and he combines them together and does an attack on Rito here. And eventually kind of like flips him off, flips him over Rito, and so he falls. I honestly think that probably I'm kind of curious if Rito in the Sentai thing like wasn't really much of a character there. And I'm curious if they're just like using certain bits of footage here from the fight from Rito earlier in the show that they just didn't show, that they just didn't use, and they're using it later now here. I'm curious if that's a thing. So I would like to go on and watch the Sentai footage just to see like what actually they did in the show with this Rito character, because they would have had to for the Ninja series. So it would be fascinating to see what they actually did with this character. If he was like a nothing character or not, I'd be curious. Anyways, uh so here's where Rito whips out his cannon arm and or his kind of flamethrower cannon arm thing, and he brings that back out as this substantial weapon. And so here's where the Rangers are forced to get back into doing Megazord, Ninja Megazord, to combat now that Rito has kind of stepped up his game. So honestly, I like how also in this show they keep harping back to this actual cockpit, because I oddly like this cockpit a little bit more than the Thunder Megazord. Because again, like immediately when I look at the Thunder Megazord, like I would just see the Rangers just flopping one side to the other, and it just looks stupid. Like this cockpit, I'd be like, all right, like I can kind of be won over by this. But if anything, like the Dino Megazord, I think just has a better looking. Well, the White Tiger Zord has a better looking. It looks, it's a cooler cockpit. And then we have Dino Megazord, and then we'll have this so far. With the movie one, I'd probably say the movie one is probably better than this one, but regardless, it's just because it's flashier. It has more shit in it. Um, anyways, so, but that Zord though. That Zord though. Ugh. Anyways, but I think also some people like the movie Zord more than, or the same and there is actually a toy out there that you can actually get the movie Megazord somewhere. It's probably expensive though. Anyways, so Rito is to go on and be blasting away at his cannon as the Ninja Megazord is going on into its power punches. So the first power punch of the wolf knocks down the cannon from off of Rito. The second punch has Rito go flying, and so oddly enough, just the commentary that the Rangers have to have in their Zords is just kind of like it's so strange to me. Like in the early of Mighty Morphins, like all their commentary during the Zords actually was to go on and actually did sound good. This time around, it just sounds just odd to me. I think it's probably because we hadn't had that commentary in so long, but also like it really doesn't seem that this commentary really fits the situation. Or like it obviously feels like to me that there is some kind of like disconnect. I don't know. It just feels weird. It just doesn't sound right when they're doing it now. Like at one point we have like Rocky who tells Tommy like, "Attaboy, Tommy." I'm like, ugh, like that just sounds like ugh. Like I'm so like creeped out by that. Ugh. Like no. Uh, because Rocky goes on and says, "To the moon, Rito." I'm like, whatever, whatever, Rocky. Whatever you gotta say here. So, back at the Moon Palace, so Rito has made his way back to the Moon Palace, and Rito is going on reflecting about, or so Zed is going on reflecting how Rito had gone on to just lose. Saying that first it was her brother, and now it's this dumb cat. Like, wait a minute, like the cat really didn't do much in this episode. Like, I guess this is just Ed, or in this case Zed, who's going on to reflect about how like he hasn't really had like much of success going on right now, and he's still blaming Rita for every problem that kind of arises. So and and when Rito does come back, like Rita ends up asking Rito, it's like, well, hey, what are you doing here? And Zed's like, well, yeah, I've been asking that same question since he got here. And it's like, yeah, like he was very successful at first, Rito was, but now like he's just gone back into the fold, and so like so Rito has to have been the very first one that has really taken down the Power Rangers. So much so that they had to change powers, so much so that they had to go on and get Ninjetti stuff. So, if anything, I think Rito's one massive victory almost kind of trumps so much stuff that Rita and Zed has kind of done for so long because of how much of a mass success that was. But then again, also, like, Tommy did have to go from Green Ranger to White Ranger. So that is kind of a real change of things there. So you have to have that into account. Yeah, like, but anyways. So, like, I'm just trying to make rationale for why Rito could be an important character. Anyways, so now back to the command center. The Rangers have now made their way back to the command center to speak with Alpha 5. Alpha goes on to state how them trying to track down Tommy has been blocked, and they're trying to possibly figure out how they can maybe use Tommy's communicator to try to figure out something. But it seems that Zordon is to relay to the Power Rangers that there is some kind of powerful shield that is making it difficult for them to go on and trying to get to Tommy. So that kind of explains everything away of like, well, hey, like, shouldn't we be able to like figure out where Tommy is right now? Uh, so now we cut back to Goldar in this cave, finally having the White Ranger wake up, so that way Goldar can face off against him. So here's this kind of cool effect here. So Tommy is going on and he's laying in this car, and then all of a sudden the car disappears, and then Tommy just drops like a sack of potatoes. And I thought that effect was honestly handled so cool, because it's like, wait a minute, like, where Tommy was and then where Tommy drops was actually so interesting how they did that effect. So Tommy ends up getting up, shaking himself off, and it's like, all right, Goldar, where's Catherine? Because we almost have completely forgotten that she was even here. So here is the problem that I have with this episode. So Rita comes in here, and like how she comes in is this like this really weird, like, kind of in and out. It's kind of like how Tommy was as future Tommy came back, and he's like, I just want to tell you, communicator, you know what to do. Like, and Tommy's like, no, I don't know what to do. No, that's not exactly what happened. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, like, why doesn't Rita just show up and just start talking to Tommy? Why does she have to be like this weird in and out, just gonna like? Plus, also, like, when I was watching Rita here and she was coming in and out, like, it was almost like the equivalent of like a strobe light. Man, honestly, with these episodes, if you get vomiting very easily, like, maybe these episodes are not to be for you. Because, man, when Rita was going on and doing that in and out thing, I was like, oh, like, my eyes are getting really effed up here. Plus, also, they eventually later on did some other kind of like strobe light thing in these episodes, and that kind of really messed up my brain also, or messed up my eyes. So I was like, God dang it, like, man, like, it's a good thing that originally these shows were done like on a weekly thing, but binge watching it now is not helping things. But anyways, so Rita goes on and tells Tommy, like, hey, I bet you had a nice nap. You had a nice cat nap. Also, it's kind of funny how, like, Rita here is like, well, hey, like, since you were going on and spending so much time with Catherine, like, what would you think Kimberly would think about what's going on right now? Yeah, like, if anything, it's kind of interesting how, like, Kimberly ends up quickly going on, like, hey, who's that girl, Tommy? But, like, there's not a single moment where they have, like, Kimberly kind of, like, off to the side, and, like, Kimberly's talking to anybody in the command center because they have nothing better to do anyways. And Kim could just be like, yeah, like, why is Tommy with that girl now? Like, what did I say? Like, like, yeah, none of that ever comes up. None of that ever comes up in the show. That's the thing that bugs me, is, again, like, Tommy and Kim have a relationship, but then again, they don't have a relationship. And, like, they do kind of separate them from all the, but, like, yeah, none of this relationship stuff comes up, even though they should have one, but they're still friends, right? Just, god dang. Just, something about the show. They should have thought things through more, but I guess I'm having to think that through for them. I'm doing all the heavy lifting. You're welcome, show. Anyways, so Tommy hits Rita with the whole, like, you can't do this, Rita. And you would think that Rita would just tell Tommy, like, well, I already have. Like, it's too late. So since Tommy realizes that he's going to go on and face off against Goldar, so here's the funny thing, folks. So whenever the Rangers do ever go on and be in like a dark dimension or like, they would have problems morphing. But in this case, Tommy goes on and he just morphs away. Like, not like teleports away. I'm just saying, like, he just whips out his morpher and then morphs. Like, I guess there is like the one thing where Jason could have morphed, but Goldar takes his morpher away from him. So, and that happens in a dark dimension where maybe Jason could have morphed, but Goldar took away that opportunity to do so. So, I guess maybe that's a changing of things. That could have made some kind of difference, but still, it bugs the crap out of me. So, Rita explains to Tommy that she's gotta run, she has a city to destroy. And in my brain here, I'm just like, why did Rita even need to be here? Couldn't have Goldar gone on to say any of this stuff? And they wouldn't have needed Rita to be here? Because it honestly gives Goldar nothing to do. But just to stand there and be like, well, like I'll just whip out the newspaper, like, hey, Marmaduke, hey, Garfield this week. Like, Goldar is just standing there, and Rita is just having this little banter with Tommy back and forth. So so Tommy is to make his way back to Goldar and pay more attention to him. And so, like, the banter back and forth leads Goldar to say, it's like, well, hey, you're in no position to give any threats because of where you are. So now back at the command center. They finally, after so many amounts of time later, I think because Tommy has now morphed, the Rangers seem to have some kind of trace of figuring out where exactly Tommy is. So Billy has gone on to find Tommy, and so they go back to the viewing globe, and now they're watching Tommy face off against Goldar. Here's where they go on and they mention it's like, oh, hey, yeah, Tommy's going on and facing Goldar, but hey, where is that girl? Yeah, I don't see her anywhere. So it's good that they're like remembering that this girl Catherine does exist, and there is some more logic coming into this show. And also, it would kind of be interesting to see how exactly they did the viewing globe, and like if the viewing globe may have gone on to be some effect of some kind that they would have to be put in place after the show. So it'd be kind of interesting if somebody would have asked one of the Rangers how exactly they did the viewing globe effect on the show. Because obviously, I think the viewing globe is not just some TV screen that the Rangers are looking at. Like, I think what they do is they just have this ball of light that the Rangers are probably looking at, and in post, like, they probably have some CGI thing come in and just put the whatever they're looking on afterwards. Because yeah, that would be the one thing to eventually, I hope somebody asks somebody from Power Rangers how they did that. Anyways, so the Rangers are trying to figure out if there's going to be any way for them to be able to penetrate this shield to try to get to Tommy. And Billy comes up with the idea of like, well, hey, I probably have some items in my lab that will probably go on and help us get Tommy back. Because, of course, Billy in the past had got on to eventually be captured and eventually he would figure out a way to free himself from that machine that was keeping him captive. So if anybody can go on and break back into Zed and Goldar's like kind of dimensional whatever places, it's probably Billy, because of that whole clone episode where Billy had that disc thing and figured out a way to free himself. So Goldar is facing off against Tommy here, as Tommy goes on and calls him a gold monkey. And some of the attacks that Tommy uses is actually pretty unique here. Yeah, like Tommy is kind of known from like going on to like jumping off, like because he jumps off this like rock here to eventually do this like swinging kick of a thing, and that was kind of interesting. Uh, but also like how like Tommy goes at one point and like steps off like Goldar's leg and kind of does this like knee thing. Like I thought that was kind of interesting. Like the fight did look unique. It wasn't that they were just like holding one another off with swords and like cut away like that. So there was actually fighting going on here, and it was actually interesting. So I like how they cut back to Rita here, and Rita's like, "Oh, poor little Tommy. I'll miss him." Not. Because when you really think about it, like Rita and Tommy have had like a really long history. So maybe that was the reason why Rita finally had to be in a scene with Tommy, for honestly just their long history together. Uh, so that could be the justification of their dialogue between one another, as well as it also just finally being something different for the show. So Babu and Squat are going on and relaying to Rita how Billy and Adam are making their way to Billy's lab, and how they're probably thinking or figuring out how to probably free Tommy. So Rita goes on to ask Babu and Squat if Billy and Adam are alone. Did I say Billy and Adam? Or Billy and Tommy? I got a little confused there. Billy and Adam, so my apologies. So Rita ends up asking Babu and Squat if the two of them are alone. And so Babu and Squat says yes. And so Rita's like, well, okay, like, this is the perfect timing to pull out my plan B, which is to have Catastrophe make her way into facing off against both Billy and Adam here. So here's my thing. So Billy goes on and he is at the command center. He just talks to the Rangers and he mentions, hey, we need to go to my laboratory so I can go on to figure out a solution. Why doesn't Billy bring every single Ranger with him to the lab instead of just him and Adam? Like, why is it that all the Rangers need to hang back? Like, are some of them just watching the feed to report back to Billy, even though we have Alpha anyways? Like, I guess some of the Rangers wanted to hang back just to see what was going on with Tommy, so that way they could just be updated. And, like, at some point in the past, we have had Aisha go with Adam and Billy to do science experiments. So, like, Aisha could have gone with them too, because we've seen it in the past. But rinse and repeat with both Billy and Tommy, or god dang it, Billy and Adam being sciencey guys, so they have to just go alone here. So Catastrophe appears in front of Adam and Billy. I wanted to say that correctly there. So as soon as the Catastrophe shows up, she goes on and says, hey, how about a little game? And Billy morphs. So Catastrophe is going on and talking about how about a little cat and mouse. And here's the thing that I absolutely honestly love about the fighting in this show. So when they go on and they do, like, when two Zords or two Rangers are doing this attack at the same time, I strangely really like this kind of attack. Because it looks cool, as well as also it's just strategically smart, in my opinion. Because if you have, like, two people striking one thing at the same time, like, that impact will be very devastating. I feel. Plus, also, like, it's attacking multiple, like, areas at one time. So, like, in my thought process, I think that's just a smart attack. So, but it's also, when you really think about it, like, Billy and Adam kicking here, it's kind of the equivalent of a drop kick, or a missile drop kick. It's the same thing. But anyways, but also, like, the reverse here just kind of looks cool as well. So Adam and Billy go flying into the air with their kicks, and Catastrophe catches the both of them, and then just has them go flying and smacking into this tree, which I'm like, damn. So, but it's also kind of like episodes of the past where the Rangers out of costume would go on and they would take the putties and they would just grab them and just slam them into trees, which I was like, man, like, whoever was to have gone on and been like the stunt people, like the stunt putties, and I'm sure their backs are just effed up with all the stuff that they did on the show, because of just the slamming and the, like, yeah, you would think that would be amazing if these stunt people had a really long shelf life on the show, but like, they would go on and they would say that some of the stuntmen were like, man, yeah, like, this one guy, he's been on the show for years, and da, da, da. And I'm like, how? Like, they would do so much, like, slamming them against these like, all these things, and, like, I'm sure that they had no padding for these costumes, so I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's some padding that I never saw. Anyways, so Catastrophe goes on and she is tearing through Adam and Billy, and sparks are flying here. So we again see sparks upon their suits. So Adam and Billy here are realizing that they're no match for Catastrophe. So Billy goes on and he calls for reinforcements. So immediately when the rest of the Rangers realizes that a crisis is going down, they all morph and they appear together. We start to see that Catastrophe is to be attacked by the Rangers, and as Adam and Billy had gone on to do their leg attack, we start to see that going on with other Rangers here. We see, I think, both Adam and Billy start off the attack. Then we see both Aisha and Kimberly. They go on and they do their double fist attack, and then Rocky ends up coming in with his, like, swinging crotch leg attack. Cause yeah, he comes, like, flying in, and, like, all you can see is, like, basically crotch, straight up. Anyways, so Catastrophe realizes that she's finally outnumbered, and she ends up saying, next time I won't pussyfoot around, and then she leaves. So she says, anyways, so Billy goes on and tells the rest of the Rangers, hey, yeah, like, I completely forgot. It's about time to go back to the lab, because we have to make this whole, like, bit of eating up of time where Rocky calls Billy and Adam and asks, like, hey, how's the experiment coming? Like, we have to do that whole thing. So, since now Catastrophe has kind of left the field, Rita is calling out for Rito, and they realize that Rito is going to have to go on and do some heavy lifting again. So, since Goldar has not yet been able to destroy the White Ranger, Rita and Zed are telling Rito that they need him to make his way to help out Goldar to finish the White Ranger. So, again, the flipping and flopping of Tommy and Goldar is going pretty good. And then all of a sudden, Rito ends up coming into the fold, and the fighting is getting interesting. How, like, one singular ranger is facing off against these kind of two monsters, but it's frickin' Tommy. It's frickin' Tommy. So, Tommy, to start evening the odds, whips out Saba, and we start to see at some certain points where Tommy is to drop Saba and run off after it, and like and Rito is putting the boot to Tommy, like, ah ha ha, yeah, you're not gonna catch Saba now, are you? I would have thought that, like, once Tommy whips out Saba, like, Saba should just all of a sudden be flying in the air and like blasting around both Rito and Goldar, and would have just really been evening the odds here. But that's not what happens. But it was cool how Tommy at one point technically does like the Jedi thing, where the Saba sword is like so far away from him, and he's like, Saba to me, or kind of like, and he grabs it and starts fighting. Like, it is kind of, it's fun. So now back at the command center, here's where Rocky calls upon Billy to ask, like, hey, where is the device coming? Because he had just gotten to the lab. Billy is going on to tell the Rangers how he hasn't quite find the perfect frequency to get the device ready. So eventually they just need more time. The Rangers are going on and seeing Tommy face off against Rito and Goldar, and starting to really be in danger here. And that's why they're to go on and try to call Billy and ask him where the progress of this is, because they've realized, like, that Tommy can go on and get taken out here the more and more they wait. So Billy and Adam have finally figured out how to make this device, this chip looking thing, finally be able to, like, okay, we have it now working. So the two of them teleport to the command center. The rest of the Rangers are all watching Goldar and Rito kind of take out Tommy here, as Billy goes on to open up this part of the command center and put this chip in and start hitting a lot of buttons. It's always interesting here how they always have to go on whenever Billy just does something, how they have to turn to Billy and say, good job, Billy, or good work, Billy. I'm like, this just seems so weird. Like, yeah, like, it's kind of nice that Billy does go on and they want to, like, just be like, man, yeah, like it's good that Billy's there to do all this stuff, and that he had done this thing that really did help them. Uh, but also, like, in so many of these episodes, I would just consistently say, "Good work, Billy," or "Good job, Billy," and I would just start to get like really annoyed how the consistency of that happens. Like, it just seems to be like the go-to phrase that they have in these episodes, and I start to just get like, yeah, it's nice that they're going on, and like they're building good teamwork between one another by like appreciating when somebody does go on and do something good. But when it is so consistent within a certain number of episodes at a time where I'm hearing the same kind of thing, oh yeah, it just becomes like okay, we get it. Like Billy is really good, but like and like it is still kind of cool how Billy from time to time now, not as much as early stages in Mighty Morphin, would kind of come in and help out the team. Whereas now he's just kind of reserved to every once in a while making these like invention things that help out the team from time to time, but it's not as much as when it was in the early part of Mighty Morphin. Um, but maybe in Zeo, maybe it will be different. Maybe he will have something more substantial to offer in the show at some. I have no idea. It's been a long time since seeing Zeo. Uh, but it's kind of nice to also have Billy something to do in this show, which I could justify if he's the worst or best ranger. Anyways, so now they're going back and they're looking at the viewing globe to see Tommy and Golar and Rito. Here's where they start realizing that like they don't really see that girl anymore. As well as also we don't have Tommy that goes on and asks Goldar or Rito where the girl is. After the first call out of Tommy saying, "Hey, where's Catherine?" Like, I get it that Tommy could be distracted into the fight, but again, it would be nice if every once in a while Tommy would chime in with like, "Well, hey, like, tell me where Catherine is." Every once in a while, just to have the viewers be reminded in this episode that Catherine still exists and Tommy's still thinking about her, even though he's also fighting. And maybe that's distracting him, and maybe that's why he's not fighting very well or whatever, because he's focused on this girl. Maybe he likes her. Maybe he's like how Tommy before, like when there was a problem with Kimberly, he was so focused and so distracted on that he didn't fight that well. Yeah, like so they could have brought that into the fold. I don't know. Anyways, so Zordon is to go on and tell the Rangers how much of a possibility it is of this whole penetrating the shield thing could go on and eventually have them lose both Tommy and Catherine, and try to say how the stakes are higher here when they really aren't. Uh, so so now back with Tommy and Goldar and Rito. Saba feels that he has gone on to kind of fail Tommy here, and that honestly is just kind of interesting to just kind of see that this how much this sword just uh cares about helping out its connected ranger. So Saba is faith is waning, and so Tommy's like, well, hey, like, don't bust that nut just yet. Come on, like let's just keep trying. So and now we're back to horrible face Goldar. Having Goldar state to Tommy, it's like, well, yeah, like Zordon can't save you now. So now we have the Rangers all in the command center, and they put their hands together, it's not like the movie where they're going up high like this, they're going down on the ground. So they're trying to not be just like the movie this time around. So they have their hands all come together, and as soon as Goldar is putting in his final sword blow to Tommy, all of a sudden his sword goes down and there's nothing there. They realize that Tommy has disappeared and they don't know where he has gone, both Goldar and Rito. All of a sudden at the command center, as the Rangers have gone on to put their hands together and there's a special effect going on where all their colors are flashing, we then all of a sudden see Tommy around them, and I think there's a little bit of delay of him being there, because, yeah, it just looked kind of weird. So, as Tommy arrives, guess what he immediately, thanks, Billy. Just God dang it. Like, yeah, like, Billy, you haven't had an episode that really focuses on you for how long now? But hey, yeah, like, at least we'll just be like, hey, you're doing something, even though really, like, God, yeah, like, I think the last episode that actually focused a little bit more on Billy was like the escape of Bukala, and that was about it. Like, that straight up was like, I think the last episode that really focused on him. Man, I miss the times when they had those Kimberly and Billy episodes that they focused more on those characters more. Because, man, is that just such like a bygone era, it seems. So anyways, so, but it's kind of nice here when Tommy goes on and thanks Billy, and then Billy tells Tommy how it's like, hey man, I'll always be there for you. It's like, ah, this is nice. So, but, so here's the thing here. So, Tommy goes on and has completely forgotten about Catherine. And so Tommy goes on and asks the group here, it's like, well, hey, what about Catherine? Like, if anything, she was captured, and now we don't know where she is. And so they try to figure out, it's like, well, hey, well, Catherine must still be with Zed and Rita. Like, they must still have her. And because they couldn't have tracked her down, they couldn't have gotten her location, they couldn't have teleported her out. So Zed and Rita realize that they have lost Tommy back in the Moon Palace, and but they still realize that they still have an ace up their sleeve, and it's still Catherine. So Catherine then goes on to appear, and they have Catherine turn back into Catastrophe. So Catastrophe is to now go on and be on the viewing globe. The Rangers are to be aware that Catastrophe is wreaking havoc upon Angel Grove Park, and they are to completely forget again about Catherine, so they all morph to face off against her. Which I guess is kind of smart, because if anything, like, the Rangers will completely forget about Catherine if this threat is in their way. Because look at how many times that Tommy was captured and they completely forgot about him, and instead focused on the task at hand, which is defeat whatever monster or Goldar or Scorpina or whatever the heck else, instead of focusing on freeing Tommy. Because, yeah, that happens all the time. So, we again have more cat puns about Catastrophe mentioning about how she's digging into her claws and so on and so forth. So, Zed and Rita go on to make their monster grow, putting their staffs in an X formation. The Catastrophe ends up going fairly large. So, I think here, like, there's a certain point in one of these episodes where the Rangers end up, when they call for their Zords, like, they do it in a very weird fashion. Where, like, yeah, it just doesn't quite make sense to me, and maybe it happens here. So, the Ninja Zords all end up getting called here, and they end up going into Megazord mode. And honestly, like with Catastrophe, like it's kind of weird how her like whatever her feather boa here or her like her tail or whatever the heck that is, like it's weird how like just in the air it is. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like I don't know what that whole thing was doing with her feather boa or whatever that was, her tail or whatever that thing is. Like I was so confused by that, and it was kind of like, what is going on? So as the Ninja Megazord is coming to the fold here, we also come to find that Ninjor is getting into the battlefield. He just comes out of nowhere. He was nowhere to be seen throughout the whole good chunk of episode, and then Cat turns to Ninja like, "Who's that?" And so like, so Ninjor ends up facing off against Catastrophe here, and Ninjor ends up turning into Samurai mode. I guess this is just one of those cases where they just didn't have time to figure out how to put Ninjor in the episode. But they could have during the time of which that was to have been Sentai, right? They figured that out. Anyways, so Ninja ends up doing his Hadouken, his discus throw thing, his discus attack. I still have no idea what that's called, and I never will. So let me know in the comments below what exactly is that attack called, because I'm sure there's a specific name for it, which I couldn't have been bothered to figure out, because I just don't have that kind of time in my life. To take 2 seconds to probably Google this. Yeah. And by the time that I do, it probably won't be worth it anymore to know what it is anyways. Because, yeah, it probably won't. So Ninja goes and does his Hadouken, and we have the super punch that comes from the Ninja Megazord. And that is to be the final attacks that is to transpire to supposedly wipe out Catastrophe. But it doesn't, because Cat is still alive, and Catastrophe is still a thing. So when eventually the battle stops, we have Ninja that says, "Oh yeah, we bad," and I'm like, that was hilarious. I love that. Just the like, yeah, we bet. Like, really? Like, you had to throw that in there. So the Rangers all go falling out of their Zord, and they go back into their civilian clothes. We have the Rangers race to Catherine and find out that she's okay. What was the rhyme or reason for them doing that? How did the Rangers know where Catherine was? You know what? A whole jingle jangle from the command center could have gone on and cleared this all up, but that just didn't happen. So this whole scene just seems a little cattywampus to me, or a little bit like, what? Like, how do the Rangers know this? So the civilian Rangers rush to Catherine, so she goes on to explain, it's like, thank goodness, that was awful. The monsters are... So this is just to tell us that Cat is still okay, and that they're going to continue on this storyline. That Catherine is not going to be done here. It's like so many times in the past where they would go on to take out Scorpina, Goldar, and Rito, and all with these ultimate moves, but then they would still be a part of the show. So this part here is just telling us that we'll see a Catastrophe and this and that all still again. That this will continue. So Tommy goes on and tells Catherine, it's like it's okay, Catherine, you're okay for now. And like, man, like they should have hammed this up a lot more. Like Tommy should have gone on and should have grabbed and hugged Catherine and says like, hey, it's okay, it's all right. Yeah, they should have really hammed it up. because like this scene here just kind of just seems a little off. Like, shouldn't the Rangers have gone on to ask, like, well, hey, why didn't they keep Catherine and like hold it as a bargaining chip? Like, why? Like, yeah, like if you really think about it, they could have kept Catherine, and instead of kidnapping Kimberly, they could have said, hey, we have Catherine now, and so you're going to need to go on and need to use these swords uh, in order to keep Catherine safe. Man, am I just writing these episodes for the show? Just, why couldn't they have thought of these things? But like, I get it. Like, having Kat take Kimberly's power coin and then having Kimberly be kidnapped by Zed yet again, like, I guess that is to be much more interesting. Because remember, Kimberly did get kidnapped by Zed, and Zed was going to use Kimberly to basically become a Rita clone at one point. So, like, I guess this is harkening back uh to Kim being kidnapped by Zed for how many multiple times it's happened now. So I guess we have to just go to that old chestnut. But anyways, so but yeah, Tommy should have really comforted Catherine, and he didn't. He just told her, "Hey, it's okay for now." Like no, Tommy, hug that woman, stroke her hair, tell her it's gonna be okay. God dang it, Tommy, be a real gentleman. So the Rangers and Catherine are all now walking off, and so Catherine is saying how she basically had gotten away from the villainous people and how she arrived back at the park. So Catherine is really selling the story that somehow the Rangers are to buy. But it's like, man, how is it that a civilian had gotten away from Rita and Zed's clutches so easily, but a Power Ranger, like, man, would they have that issue? So again, just something just doesn't click here. So Catherine is going on and mentioning how she's now transferred uh, to Angel Grove, and they're talking about how Angel Grove is such a great town. And so Catherine is like, well, yeah, like I just moved here, so in all honesty, like I'm gonna leave you all because I'm gonna go and I'm gonna unpack because yeah, like I'm new to this town, so as Catherine walks off, the Rangers are all going on, and they're like, "Well, hey, like, yeah, that Catherine girl, yeah, she's something, right? Yeah, I can't wait for her to enroll in Angel Grove. Yeah." And Kimberly's like, "Yeah, I like her accent. Like, I like how she sounds Australian because she's from Australia." Anyways, so shortly thereafter, they're all going on and they're talking about how cool and how neato that cat is. All of a sudden, there is a cat that appears, and it's PC. The Rangers all are starting to notice that PC is there, so Kimberly goes on and picks up the cat and Aisha, and so all of a sudden we then see the cat in the focus of frame, and the eyes go green. Wait a minute! As you can see here, Catherine's eyes are going some orangey red bullshit, and now all of a sudden we see the cat, and the cat's like, and the eyes are green. That does not match up. Another error to be just thrown into the thing of this show. Now we go to credits. So in the credits, it seems they're either doing some blooper reel stuff or they're doing these like added scenes. So actually, the credits are kind of worth watching right now. There's an extra scene where Bulk and Skull are meeting up with Catastrophe, and they end up getting freaked out by the monster and they pass out, and like that's what they go with this following episode, or to end the episode with the credits roll. So now we go on to Changing of the Zords Part 1. Man, we have not covered much ground here, but regardless, I'm going to just soldier on. There's too much banter here that I'm sorry. It just has to happen. So, at the youth center, we have Aisha, Kimberly, and Kat, and they had just gone shopping because since Catherine is new here, she needs new clothes, and Catherine doesn't have clothes anyways because she's actually just an evil, monstrous human being. Even though, yeah, so, yeah, but technically she's actually a human. Anyways, so moving on. So Catherine is going on and figuring out a way to have her walk off frame here, and Catherine is mentioning to Aisha and Kimberly that she is going to make her way home for dinner, and Aisha and Kimberly ask like, "Well, hey, do you want me to drive you home?" And Catherine's like, "No, no, no, no. Like I don't need you to do that for me. I'm fine." Because of course, like they can't drive her home anyways because she doesn't actually have a home. Well, she has one, but doesn't technically. If anything, she's kind of living with Kimberly and Aisha right now, so that's her living with somebody. So as Catherine walks off here, all of a sudden she bumps into Tommy, like, and they say their hellos. And then just something about the scene between the two of them, it's like, there's just something there. I can't quite put my finger on it. So Catherine walks off, and then all of a sudden Tommy hugs Kimberly, and then Kat looks back. She's like, and her eyes glow red. Because again, Catherine is like that weird, like, I will have Tommy, I will have him. She's like that kind of woman. She goes on to find a picture of Kimberly and Tommy in Kimberly's stuff, and she takes the picture, and when she's with Rita and Zed, to her back she has that photo on her, and then she goes on later and takes the photo and tears it. It's like, yeah, Tommy will be mine. And so I'm wondering in the back of my mind, is that Catherine being evil, or is that Catherine just kind of being a good person through this kind of like I'm trying to figure that out. Like, is it just that Catherine is to be attracted to Tommy, and good or bad, she still like wants this, and but like it's coming off as kind of creepy as her bad side, but in as like if she was to be the good, she would still be interested in Tommy. So figure that out. Anyways, so Fencer comes up with another monster for Zed and Rita as he appears here. And Zed is like, well, yeah, like at this point, like, do we just want a monster that just destroys itself? I think we've kind of had that in so many ways. Like, there has been so many monsters that quickly get just sliced, and like, it's like, okay, what was the point of that monster? Like, it had no screen time whatsoever, or barely any. So, here's where Finster goes on and explains to Zed and Rita about the whole plan of Zordnia, and how Finster is hoping that they can go on and make their way to Zordnia to get these Zords to combat uh the Rangers with these Zords. And it's like, okay, so what was Finster thinking here? Was he thinking that he can go on and make a bunch of monsters and be putting them into the Zords? Like, what was he thinking here? Like, I don't know what he was really like, what this plan was really. So, but Zed goes on and takes this idea, and he's like, well, hey, instead of us coming up with some kind of monster, some kind of thing to be put in the Zords, we'll just make the Rangers do that them like destroy Angel Grove for us. So we cut to Kimberly making her way to find Catherine. Kimberly goes on to explain to Catherine how the Rangers are going on to this lake and was hoping if Catherine would want to come. Catherine ended up saying no because she isn't quite fond with water. If you really think of cats, you realize that cats aren't really fond of water. So then all of a sudden Tommy arrives. And then Tommy ends up asking Kimberly about the whole, hey, are you coming to the lake thing? And this honestly kind of reminds me of the one cardinal sin of past episodes where Kimberly and Tommy had this dialogue, and Kimberly asked Tommy, hey, are you going to the mall? And Tommy's like, no, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work out. This kind of feels like the same thing here. But like Tommy goes on and I guess is to just make his way into the scene and doesn't know what they're doing. And so he kind of repeats exactly what Kimberly had already asked. So I guess that's not as bad, but it kind of is stupid how they like repeat the same thing. So as soon as Tommy is to ask about it, then Catherine changes her tune. It's like, no, I'll go to the lake. Like, sure, I'll go on. I'm sure Catherine is probably going to work on her tan. Not to say that she's pale. No. Like, I'm just saying, like, hey, like, if she's not going to go to the water, maybe she'll just work on her tan. That'll make a lot of sense. So cut to Finster, Babu, and Squat that are making their way to Zordnia, and they're trying to figure out where exactly this thing is. So, of course, we're not going to have these people just easily find this thing. No, they have to kind of find it by accident. It's kind of like Adam, where he went on and he accidentally falled into the one rock that ended up opening up the Ninjor cave. Same thing here. We have Squat that goes on and he's just like, and he just kind of sits down and he's tired. Then all of a sudden he touches on something and then he realizes that it's Zordnia. And so they thrust the weeds and the stuff that is to be all around Zordnia, and Squad ends up getting some of it caught in his beard or his chin, which I thought was funny. So we have Bulk and Skull, and weirdly enough, like even though they're police officers, they're basically playing the equivalent of lifeguards here, and we honestly have the Baywatch moment going on with Bulk and Skull. All of a sudden, Bulk and Skull realizes that a number of kids are all drowning, and so they're weirdly thrusting off their belts, and in a very slow motion like way, they're thrusting off their police gear, and they all of a sudden have these black and white striped swimsuits underneath. They go on and they thrust their way into the water, and then all of a sudden realize that all of the kids could stand up. To where both Bulk and Skull realize, like, oh, crap. Well, that was a waste of time. So, we now make our way back to Catherine. Catherine now having her, I think she has like a tiger towel on her, which, man, I think that does probably make a lot of sense if it is a tiger towel, because cat, and also Well, honestly, when you think about it, like having Catherine so adamant about going after Tommy makes a lot of sense here because if you think about his prior uh, animal costume that he is still now in, how he at one point was the white tiger, that was a cat. How Catherine is going after Tommy, who was a white tiger, but now is a falcon, but still is a white tiger. In some ways, yeah, cat and cat makes a lot of sense. Just making that weird comparison. So, so Rita is going on and telling Cat what she needs to do here. That she needs to go on and she needs to retrieve a power coin. And Cat completely understands that, and eventually Rita is to go on and disappear here. Cat makes her way to Kimberly and Aisha's bench that has these backpacks. So immediately we figure out which backpack is whose, so that way eventually when Catherine goes in and is to start stealing power coins, we know exactly which one she's taking. So Kimberly and Aisha walk off. And so Kat is going on like, all right, well, since they're walking away here, unsuspicious of me, like I'm going to be tempted to go on and try to steal one of their power coins. Let me pause here for a second. Okay, so Kat needs to go on and obtain the power coin because the power coin is going to get the Rangers into the Falcon Zord. And once the Falcon Zord is then stolen, which I don't quite get a real true understanding of why that exactly needs to happen. But if anything, the power coin handed off to both Rhea and Zed also helps them supposedly understand their technology, as well as also can go on and help them obtain the newer Zords from Zordnia and be able to adjust the technology to where Zed has these Zords under his control. But eventually it'll get reversed by Billy because Billy will just figure out, because he's science guy, how to reverse what Zed had gone on to do, so that way the Power Rangers can get the Zords back under their control. Which, the way they go about that isn't exactly right, because Billy just goes on and fixes his own Zord, and then when he fixes his own Zord, it seems that all the rest of the Zords are all fine, which doesn't make any sense. You would think that Billy would have had to have hopped from Zord to Zord to Zord to fix all of them instead of just fixing his one. It doesn't make any sense. But anyways, this show has to just kind of, in the easiest way, fix things instead of making actual logical sense. So, anyways, so since Catherine is to try to go on and need to get to this backpack, but she's kind of worried if anyone's going to notice her, Zed goes on with Rita and explains to uh, that they need to send the Tengus out. So as they go on and they send the Tengus out, we all of a sudden have, like, as if this is like the movie Jaws, where everybody freaks out, they start running away, kind of like it's a shark, and they start running out. So we come to find that all the Power Rangers, half of them are shirtless. Ooh, ah, right? So we'd start to find that the Rangers have just ducked below the water, and we're a little confused why. So we'll eventually figure it out. But anyways, it just looks weird. So we have Bulk and Skull that notice the Tengu warriors, And so they realize that they need to probably start stepping in here because this is kind of a monster attack and they need to probably do something. So as the Tangos are looking around and they realize that someone had been in the water, but they are now gone. And all of a sudden, we end up seeing these big, huge splashes coming from the water, jumping into the air, all the Rangers in their ninjetti forms, going on and attacking the Tangas. We weirdly see here that Adam has split into two ninja. So here's my problem with this. If Adam had this special ability, why wait till now to use it? I would be using this attack all the goddamn time. Because if you can split yourself in two, why wait to now to do? Yeah. Anyways, also think about it. There'd be times when, like, there'd be so few Power Rangers. Why not split yourself into two, and then attack whoever, so you can beat them quicker? Anyways, it is what it is. So Adam goes on and does this double attack with these Tangas and takes them down, and then he splits back into his solo form. We have Aisha that goes on and she vanishes in this weird puff of fire and then reappears behind one of these Tangas with his life preserver and chucks it on its head. We have Tommy that almost kind of briefly gets grabbed here, but then he ends up getting flipped out of it and ends up getting thrown into the water. The Tangas are all laughing about how Tommy is to have been thrown in the water, but he ends up coming back and attacking them. Rocky ends up going on to have this Tanga fall over, and he walks over it to get onto this boat, and then starts attacking all these Tangas around him on this boat. Here's where Catherine goes on and goes into Kimberly's backpack and retrieves the power coin. Catherine so Kimberly all of a sudden is on the field, and her eyes are starting to get a little woozy, and the Tangas are to start to become blurry. Here's where Catherine goes on to notice the picture of Kim and Tommy. Then all of a sudden, Catherine realizes, like, well, hey, wait a minute, why stop here? I just see Aisha's backpack also. I might as well get her power coin also. Here's the thing that I am to go on and say here. Why is it that in this backpack there is just the power coin? Wouldn't it actually to have been Kimberly's morpher in the backpack? Why is it the power coin? But anyways, so as Catherine gets a little greedy here, she'll find what a mistake that is. All of a sudden, both Bulk and Skull are realizing that Catherine is in the area of line of fire here. So Bulk and Skull say to Catherine that they want to get her to safety, and so Catherine is now forced to follow both Bulk and Skull out of the scene, and we again have to realize that with Catherine's back turned, we see the picture again that Catherine is holding so dearly. So further and further, as Kimberly is starting to grow ever so ill, because now that she has been morphed and separated from her power coin, yeah, she is starting to feel the effects of it. Kind of like Tommy and his grabbing of the chest. Oh, my power! Yeah, it's the same thing. So the more and more woozy that Kimberly is to get, Tommy is to tell Kimberly to stay back. And so as Bulk and Skull continue to walk and pay no never mind to Catherine, all of a sudden Catherine teleports out of the way of frame here. And Bulk and Skull look back and like, hey, where did that girl go? Like, what happened to her? How did she disappear? Like, they're so confused. So as the Tengus are to kind of regroup here and realize that their job had basically been done here, they teleport out. The Rangers go on and get back into their civilians, and they make their way to Kimberly to ask if she's okay. This kind of reminds me of like the Return of the Green Ranger, where they had cut Green Ranger's hair, and then like Tom used to feel woozy and fall down a flight of stairs. Same thing here. You would think though that in Kimberly's morph state, she would feel better and not work, but I guess that's different because if she doesn't, uh, so many questions. Um, like, but I guess also like if he doesn't have a power coin, then Kimberly, yeah, she wouldn't have her power. God damn, yeah, like it's a show. It's a show. It's just a show. So so Catherine makes her way back to Rita and Zed here, and hands them the power coin, and they're realizing that their next plans to be put in place. They're going to have to go and retrieve the Falcon Zord, and the Rangers will not be able to go on and be able to use their Zords after that. And again, we see in the back of Catherine, we see the picture as she's still holding on to it. So the Rangers all realize that there is something up with not only Kimberly, but they notice uh, that they're getting a call stating that Goldar and Tangas have been let loose on the park. So, as the Rangers start to make their way to Goldar and Tanga, Tommy turns to Kimberly and asks if she's alright. Kimberly says that she'll be okay, and Tommy double checks to make sure that she is. So the Rangers all make their way back to their backpacks, and here's where Kimberly notices that her power coin is missing. Then the next thing, she notices that her hand is glowing pink. Tommy tries to call the command center to ask what is to have happened to Kimberly. Zoran ends up relaying to the Rangers that since now Kimberly's power coin is now missing, that she is going to go search a grow forever weakened. Because if anything now without the power coin, like whenever Kimberly is to still be a Power Ranger, and it's basically like her being a Power Ranger is to basically like, well, hey, since the power coin is no longer a power source, that her being a Power Ranger, like it's siphoning off of her. So like that's what's getting her in a very weakened state. It's basically the equivalent of if you were to go on an exercise without eating any food, or fasting like for a number of days, and having no food on you. Like eventually, it would just be siphoning off your fat or siphoning off your muscle, and just siphoning off anything just to keep you alive. Uh, anyways, so they make the realization that they're gonna have to make their way uh, to the Golar and Tengu fight. So we also see Ninjor that is be put in place here. So Catherine goes on and she talks to Rita because she's in the woods. So Rita gives back Catherine the power coin, and Rita tells Catherine to steal the Falcon Zord. So I don't know why did Catherine need to give both Rita and Zed the power coin? Like, was that all just to give that back to Catherine to make her more powerful enough to get into the Falcon Zord? Either way, so okay, so Tommy and Ninjor. Tommy and Ninjor are facing off against the Tengas and Goldar, whereas the rest of the Rangers have gone on to make their way to the command center to figure out what has gone on to Kimberly. Goldar grows to giant size, and so Goldar is asking Tommy Ninjor if he has scared him, and so Tommy ends up calling for the Falcon Zord, and Ninjor ends up growing very big and saying that kind of fight a guy your own size. So Ninjor and Goldar are fighting as the Falcon Zord is flying around. Tommy is going on and basically calling out how, like, hey, yeah, Goldar, like, we're gonna beat you yet again. So Tommy's making all these claims about how Goldar is gonna get beaten because he's kind of outnumbered here. But then all of a sudden, Catherine ends up appearing behind Tommy and starts using her finger to magically have Tommy be taken down here. So I assume that Rita and Goldar, or Rita and Zed, just names, they did maybe give Catherine this power coin so she could become more powerful to take out Tommy. And that's how this just happens here. Uh, so so Tommy kind of just falls over. He sinks over, and Catherine tells Tommy, "Hey, enjoy your little cat nap," and she makes him disappear. Tommy goes flying out of his Zord, falls to the ground, and then we see that Ninjor falls to the same fate. Both Tommy and Ninjor need to grab their hands together, like, "Oh yeah, like, hang on in there, it'll be okay." So now Catherine is to be the only unpower ranger person to be in a Zord ever, with the exclusion of Bulk and Skull. Bulk and Skull had gone on to be in the Dino Megazord in some kind of weird, goofy dream sequence or something like that, right? So, but Catherine is to be, I guess, the third person, I guess, now. So, the next thing we see is the Falcon Zord is to turn into an actual falcon bird. And then all of a sudden, the falcon bird is to appear right on Zed's hand. And as further and further Tommy reaches out for Ninjor, Ninjor starts to weirdly enough vanish. I don't get why he's vanishing, but he's vanishing. So Ninjor is going to get captured by Zed and put in a bottle, and to be forced to power up the new Zords. You would honestly think if Ninjor would be captured here, then that would render the Power Rangers Ninjetti powers useless, that they wouldn't be able to have them. But again, it's just a show. So after Ninjor is to disappear, Tommy is to call out to Golar and say, like, well, hey, I'm not giving up. we're not finished. So Golar vanishes here, and so Tommy ends up calling to the command center. Tommy relays to the command center what has just transpired, and that he eventually is to be told to return to the command center. Tommy ends up seeing the claim with his last ounce of strength. He will go on and do whatever he needs to do to make the Power Rangers triumphant, if it's the last thing he ever does. So back at the Moon Palace, we have Zed and Rita that are going on and basically recapping here that they've recaptured, that they've captured Ninjor, and he's in this bottle. They talk about how they now have the Falcon Sword, and that again, this is to be the end of the Power Rangers. They'll state that claim as they play around with Ninjor in the bottle. So back at the command center, the Rangers are all looking at Kimberly as it seems that her skin is starting to glow a little pinkish at some points of her body. So they go on and so Zordon goes on to explain about there are bad news. There are bad news things to be concerned about. They mention that Ninjor has been captured by Rita and Zed, that there are new Zords coming from Zordnia that will be more powerful than the Ninjetti Megazord. So, yeah, those are coming. And all of a sudden, Kimberly then faints. Tommy, of course, the ever so gentleman, grabs Kimberly in his arms, and Zordon then explains about how Kimberly's power is being siphoned off through her. And so Zordon at one point does ask Alpha if there is any way of an alternative source for Kimberly to not have her powers to be drained like this. And Alpha is to try to figure it out at some point. So we now cut to Catherine. Catherine now has this photo of Kimberly and Tommy. Here's where Catherine ends up ripping up the paper, and then credits roll. The credit scene is to go on and have this kind of goofy scene where Rocky is facing off against this Tenga, and he ends up doing this like row, row, row your boat song, and it's kind of funny. I actually did like it. So, cut now next to the following episode. We begin our episode again in the command center because we have to keep entering these episodes this way. So, the command center we have. What part is this? Uh, Part two. I think this is part two. So they've gone on to use these scanning devices to figure out how poor of condition that Kimberly's in. Tommy ends up asking Billy, "How is she?" And Billy is telling Tommy that Kimberly's getting very weak. Without her power coin, um, she may never be able to be the Pink Ranger. So Tommy ends up telling Zordon that they can't lose Kimberly. He's like, I can't lose her. So here's where Zordon asks Alpha about the alternative source to figure out how to help Kimberly here. And they're also trying to figure out how there's a possibility that they can get back the Falcon Zord. Tommy turns to Kimberly, hoping that there's something that they could do, and cut to the Moon Palace. Uh, so at the Moon Palace, Zenorita going on and assuming that they are to have victory here. And they also they because they say it's like, well, yeah, I smell victory here, and it's like, well, maybe it's Rito, and it's again more hygiene humor. So Zed and Rita are talking about the Zords and how they need to get them up to power because they need to go on and have the Power Rangers be able to wield them and destroy Angel Grove because that'll be their plan. So now we cut to the youth center. The Power Rangers have nothing better to do at this point, and so they just can't sit around in the command center like they've done in the past. Instead, they make their way to the youth center as Kimberly is now basically comatose within the command, and there's nothing they can do. So they make their way to the youth center, and here is where Tommy is just punching away at this heavy bag, as both Adam and Rocky. So I was right about this. I was like, was it Adam and Rocky? I wasn't sure. So Tommy is punching away at this heavy bag, and here's where he goes on. I'm like, man, I wish I could get my hands on Lord Zed. And both Adam and Rocky are just like, yeah. So, because Adam and Rocky end up telling Tommy, it's like, well, hey, Kimberly's gonna be okay. Like, if anything, Zordon's looking for a way to help us, and like, if anything, we've always kind of seen things through, and it's always worked out in the end. And Tommy's remembering about the time that he had gotten his powers taken away, and he thought it was the end of everything for him. And so, yeah, so I guess they are bringing up when Tommy was to lose his powers. So they are kind of connecting the dots here, but not with like the right people. like with Kimberly losing her powers, like you would think that Tommy would speak to Kimberly. It's like, well, yeah, I'm to, of course, remember how I lost my powers. But if anything, he's kind of saying that here, but with Rangers that aren't connected with what's going on. But it's just kind of referencing this. So Catherine ends up showing up at the youth center. Catherine ends up asking, hey guys, do you know where Kimberly is? Yeah, because Catherine has to just kind of keep up the charade. As well as also, it's kind of nice that Catherine is kind of doing this dig here because she knows where Kimberly is. So Catherine ends up saying to Tommy, it's like, well, yeah, like I was supposed to meet her for lunch, and the Rangers just tell Catherine, it's like, well, yeah, I'm sorry, like it seems that she's busy right now. If anything, yeah, like I guess she won't be able to make that lunch appointment. So Catherine goes on to ask, is like, well, hey, like, well, you know what, like, well then I guess if I don't really want to eat alone, like, are any of you free? And Tommy ends up telling Catherine, it's like, well, maybe next time. So Catherine goes on and says, like, well, I hope Kimberly does show up, and then she walks off. Like, I think maybe Catherine was a little ticked off that Tommy doesn't go on and just say immediately, like, oh yeah, sure, Catherine, I'll go on and I'll go with you and I'll eat. Like, so maybe Catherine was a little ticked off about that. Maybe she's a little ticked off that she didn't get any takers. Hey, I'm sure Adam is no. I'm sure Rocky is single. Like it's never seemed that Rocky has had one iota of anybody. Like why doesn't Rocky like hey yeah like me and Catherine, all right, let's go on a dinner date. Maybe I'll get her to get away from Tommy and start thinking about me. Or Adam could go on and do the same thing. Like he's always this hopeless romantic, even though eventually is to be served up to Tanya. Like let's say that, because yeah, Tanya and Adam were a thing, were a couple. Regardless of it, if it didn't really cement it in the show, I don't care. Tommy and Aisha were a thing. Or Aisha? Tommy and Tanya. Or God dang it. Adam and Tanya. Let's get that right. Good grief! If I could just with this mouth, just get something right here. Anyways, whoo! So now back at the Moon Palace. Both Rita and Zed are talking about Kimberly's condition and that they need to go into their next plan and they need to go on and seek out their next monster, which is Fangenstein, which eventually will get a different name by Zordon. He'll just say some other weird, other different name, so we have no idea what this monster's name actually is, and I guess it doesn't really matter because the show doesn't give a crap about him. So, Fangenstein. So, Fangenstein is wreaking havoc upon the park, and we see Kimberly that is getting her powers drained from her at the command center. So Alpha is going on and mentioning about how like nervous Alpha is by what's going on here. So Alpha is to be asked by Zordon if Alpha has figured out anything yet of what alternate power source could they use to help out Kimberly right now. And Alpha hasn't quite figured out a perfect solution yet. Next up, we have the alarms going off. The viewing globe is to be turned on, or to be showed here. And Alpha and Zordon realizes that there's another monster wreaking havoc upon a park. Tommy, Adam, and Rocky are already at the youth center. Billy and Aisha make their way to the youth center, and all of a sudden their communicators go off. So Tommy goes on and answers the call by the lockers. Zordon goes on to explain to the Rangers how there's another one of Zed monsters wreaking havoc upon Angel Grove. At least they didn't say another goofy name that isn't the other one, the right name. Which I think is... Fangelstein is more interesting than the other name that they mentioned. So, the Rangers, they go on and they morph to face off against Fangelstein. So, within this battle here, we have Tommy that is mentioning for Fangelstein to put on a mouth guard. And, like, there is some really good banter about this whole, like, teeth kind of idea for this monster. So, this monster goes on and he fights the Rangers with his cape, which actually was pretty cool. It kind of reminded me of like the Batman Arkham games where Batman would go on and use these like cape techniques to kind of like push back his villains, and I actually kind of liked that. So as the capes go flying and Billy and Rocky end up getting pushed back here, as Aisha and Billy try to attack Finkelstein, their efforts are moot. Adam and Rocky try to, I think, do a double attack on Finkelstein with no effort. Tommy tries to face off against Finkelstein, and eventually ends up getting, of course, taken out like everyone else. So by the time that he's licked all of them, or bitten into all of them, that would have been a better joke. Uh, uh, we then go on and we cut to the Moon Palace. Zed is going on and happy because of how good the monster is doing right now. Uh, there's a little bit of joke here about the Rangers getting flossed again. More teeth humor. So you would think that they would like double down and they would have more than one monster because we have Catastrophe here. Honestly, if they would have brought back in Catastrophe and Finkelstein, they would have really wiped the floor with the Rangers, but they just didn't. So, both Rita and both Zed are like recounting that, like, well, hey, like Finkelstein is doing good. If anything, also, we still have Catherine, and like, if anything, um, like we're doing good right now. So Zed and Rita are hoping that Kimberly is going to wake up, so that way she'll go on and she'll want to help out. She'll want to help out, and she'll have to use her powers, and she'll have to morph. So Kimberly wakes up at the command center, and all of a sudden the viewing globe knows that Finkelstein is wreaking havoc. Kimberly realizes that she wants to morph and and call to action. Because Catherine is to be attacked by Tangas. Well, not exactly attacked, like Tangas are just surrounding her. So Kimberly talks to Alpha and Zordon and explains that she needs to go on and help Catherine. Zordon tells Kimberly that there is quite a bit of risk if she goes on and does so, and Kimberly's like, well, no, I have to do this. Like, Tommy had gone on to numerous times before and say the exact same thing, and they let Tommy go. Why should Kimberly be any different, regardless of gender or regardless of how much she knows the risk or not? She just has to go on, and she has to help people. So they let Kimberly go, and she goes into her Ninjetti powers, facing off against the Tangas alone. So the Tangas start to swarm Kimberly, and they end up grabbing her, and Catherine ends up getting into the bushes. And I think here's where we start to see at some points where Catherine is starting to break. So, because she doesn't have much dialogue here, but eventually she will. So, Bulk and Skull. Bulk and Skull are now with Lieutenant Stone, and it's been a while since actually seeing the three of these characters together. Because it's either been Bulk and Skull, or like it was that one kind of Cupid episode where like Lieutenant Stone was kind of like looking for Bulk and Skull. Yeah, it was kind of like that where they were kind of like separating them and not putting them back together. So Lieutenant Stone goes on and meets up with Bulk and Skull, and says how often that Bulk and Skull have been some kind of monster magnet, and he doesn't really believe them that they're to be always having these monsters so often occur. So at this point, we have Stone who wants to go on with both Bulk and Skull to see this for himself that there are monsters because this occurs on the daily with Bulk and Skull. To the point, I think, like, the reason, the origin of this is when Bulk and Skull go to the veterinarian place and Rito is there. Bulk and Skull try to grab Lieutenant Stone and take him to the veterinarian place to see Rito, and Rito has disappeared. So I think that is to go on and be the reason why Stone is to want to go on and now follow these guys to see if these monsters are really true, because they're starting to become like the boys who cried wolf. Anyways, so back with Kimberly. Kimberly is going on facing off against the Tangas, and she's doing a decent enough attempt to try to fight them off, but eventually they do also go on and they grab Kimberly by the leg and they thrust her down on the ground. Kimberly, getting so exhausted and so tired, she goes on to cry out for Catherine, and she says how sorry she is, and then she falls completely to the ground. Goldar appears to thank the Tangas for their good work, and that now the Pink Ranger belongs to them. Goldar ends up, like, it's nice that, like, Goldar doesn't completely, like, just put his foot on to Amy Jo Johnson's spine or something. Man, like, yeah, like, put all your weight on her spine. Like, no. Like, he just basically gets as close as he can to her without actually stepping on her. Like, I think also he had to make sure that he wasn't actually, like, stepping on her, but he was as close as he could to her. It's kind of weird. So Goldar goes on and says, like, now that he will enslave the Power Rangers, and he will go on and take Kimberly with him. So Catherine is now in the background, and she goes on and says to Kimberly, it's like, yeah, Tommy will miss you, but I'm sure he'll get over it. Yeah, Catherine. Yeah. Bang on those drums slowly. Just enjoy that. Just enjoy that beating. Anyways, so Goldar says that Kimberly will be Ranger bait. So now we're back with Fangenstein. So Fangenstein goes on and does this attack to the Rangers. He does this blast to the Rangers with, I believe, his wand, and takes them all out simultaneously. After that, Fangenstein has kind of gone and done all the distracting that he needs to do, so he disappears shortly thereafter that. The Rangers are very confused about how this monster has gone on to viciously attack all of them, but then he disappears. Fangenstein was just a distraction, and they don't realize that until it's too late. So the Rangers are very curious of why that's happened, so they make their way to the command center. So all the Rangers go back to the command center, as Bulk and Skull are now with Lieutenant Stone looking all around the park to find out that there is no monsters there. So I believe, like, Lieutenant Stone goes on and gives Bulk and Skull like 24 hours or something like that to produce some kind of monster. And so, yeah, eventually they're looking all over the place in the park to just try to find one. So the Rangers, all back in their costumes with their helmets off, are to ask what had happened to Kimberly. And so Zordon goes to and explain, well, the Rangers were battling against Incisorator. We don't know what this monster's name is. It's something. It has two names. Whatever. So Zordon says, like, hey, while you guys were busy fighting that other monster, and with Kimberly being the only one left. Uh, Kimberly had gone on to find out about Catherine being attacked by Tengus, and so Kimberly went out to try and save her. Golar had taken Kimberly, and so now they're like, okay, well, why would Zed want anything to do with Kimberly? They can't quite figure it out. Uh, and they're trying to, like, well, like, he did go on and he did steal her power coin, and he did take the Falcons. Like, they're recapping everything. Then Ninja disappears. Like, and now Kimberly, like, what is all going on? So Finster, so back in the Moon Palace, Finster goes on and makes his way to both Rita and both Zed here, and goes on. Uh, Let me pause here for a second. Finster goes on to explain to Rita and Zed how the ancient Zords are going on to be able to be piloted by the Rangers, and that Rita and Zed are to have now captured the Pink Ranger, and so now they're realizing that their plan can continue to be put in place. So, and then the next thing we see is Kimberly just kind of slapped on this glass table as it's just kind of spinning around, and her powers are getting sucked away. So Bulk and Skull and Lieutenant Stone are to make their way to these bushes, still trying to find there being monsters, and instead they find a cat. Skull goes on and grabs PC, and they don't really think anything of it. They don't think that they should probably grab this cat because at some point, both Bulk and Skull were going to go on and try to find this cat, hoping that there would be some reward money for it. But I guess we've kind of forgotten about that altogether because so many episodes have passed. But if anything, weirdly, we just have Skull that just grabs this random cat and then just puts it down back onto the ground. It doesn't really make much of sense here. So Skull goes on, puts the cat down, and then all of a sudden the cat turns back into Catherine from the other side of the bush. Catherine walks back over and waves to Skull, and Skull's like, "Hoo!" And then, like, as Catherine just walks by, Skull is just kind of like trying to figure something out, and he just can't quite figure out. So he's like, "I don't know, whatever." So he just walks. He just walks with Stone and Bulk. So now we make our way back to the command center. So they're trying to figure out how they can figure out how to rescue Kimberly. And we go on to have Lord Zed that comes on to the viewing globe. Zed goes on to explain to the Rangers how he has captured Kimberly, and he has a ultimatum for them. He wants to go on and have him make his way to the command center so he can tell them in person what he wants them to do. Of course, Alpha refuses to do that request, but eventually, Tommy's to go on and realize that they need to do it. They need to do it for Kimberly. And Zordon is like, "Tommy, you're exactly right. Like, I completely agree with your decision." And so Alpha goes on and hits all the buttons, and Lord Zed appears. Well, his throne, as well as also himself. So the throne turns, and Lord Zed is there at the command center of all things. It's so strange. So, also, like, Lord Zed ends up calling Power Rangers his friends, which makes no sense. That has got to be the strangest relationship of friendship or whatever that I've ever seen. But if anything, that's what Zed ends up calling the Power Rangers. So Zed goes on to end up asking the Rangers, like, "Hey, is anybody gonna ask me how my trip was?" like I had to make my way all the way here. You're gonna no banter, no quips, no nothing. So Zordon is telling Zed, "Hey, let's get to the point because Kimberly's life is in the balance here," and Zed is taking his sweet time. So because he's like, "Yeah, like this command center here, it's not a bad place. All right, like if anything, he's saying like, well, hey, maybe when I defeat you guys later, maybe I'll redecorate a little bit. Maybe a throw pillow hair, maybe a TV's news reporter. What do you think? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, uh, Zed all of a sudden notices that Alpha is behind one of the counters, and so Alpha pops Alpha's head back out, and so Alpha goes on and calls Zed Ed, and again, Zed has to correct somebody else that's not Rito this time of what his name is. So finally, Tommy goes on and asks Zed what exactly he wants. So he's like, all right, all right. So Zed goes on to explain to the Rangers that he needs them to pilot his fleet of Zords and do his evil bidding. And if they refuse, then he, of course, will go on uh, and have the Pink Ranger waste away. Zordon tells Zed that he'll never get away with this, and of course, uh, Zed in return tells Zordon to be like, "Hey, shut your mouth! Like, save your breath! Like, you're wasting your time, and you're wasting Kimberly's time that she doesn't have." So Zed goes on to tell the Rangers, "Hey, I'll give you as long as you need, as long as Kimberly has to make your decision." So we have the Rangers that kind of huddle together here, and they start to surmise that uh, they can't have anything happen to Kimberly, that she's one of them. So if anything, like the decision is kind of quick and kind of clear. So Zed tells them that time is now up, and asks what they have decided. We cut to be continued, and the to be continued is to be this kind of blooper reel where Bulk and Skull and Lieutenant Stone are kind of smacking into trees and all kinds of goofy stuff. So now into the following episode. This is to be the Changing of the Zords Part 3. So Tommy goes on and gives the answer to Zed that he's willing to pilot their Zords, and Zed tells Tommy that he wants them to report to duty at dusk, and for them to basically realize that they are to have their new master, which is Zed, instead of Zordon. So I'm loving this. So we have Kimberly that again is be kidnapped here, and now the Rangers have to go on and do something evil, and it's pretty cool. So let me pause here for a second. Okay. Uh, so now we transition. Catherine makes her way to Kimberly. Catherine is now watching, seeing Kimberly on this slab of table, getting her powers drained away from her. And so Catherine is going on and saying, like, oh, hello, Kimberly, sleeping peacefully. I wish it didn't have to come to this. And then all of a sudden she stops. And then, like, her evil face kind of changed into confusion. And then she's like, oh, I really don't. Or I really do wish it didn't have to come to this. So we're starting to see the evil fade from Catherine. And like this is like a turning point for this character. This is like, okay, cool, like there's something here. So back at the command center, uh of course we're getting like a progress update of like, well, hey, like have they locked onto Kimberly yet? Have they figured out where she is? Like, can we get her on the viewing globe? Like where is she? Da 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 da. So uh can they teleport her back to the command center? Da 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 da. So they realize again that there is to be some interference to be able to not figure out where exactly Kimberly is. So you would think with two of what had just happened to Tommy, you would think that Kimberly would probably be very easy to find because I think Kimberly was in the exact same spot that Tommy just was, but it just looks slightly tweakingly different. Like you would think that they would just recreate what they just did with Tommy with Kimberly, but they aren't. Anyways, so Zordon is relaying to the Rangers here that Rita and Zed are holding the fate of the Pink Ranger with the possession of her power coin. And so, if anything, like them trying to figure out all these things here are just kind of pointless. And all we need to focus on is just trying to get Kimberly back now. And where is she? Billy goes on and figures out how Kimberly is to be stuck in one of Zed's dark dimensions. Yeah, I'm sure that was going to be really hard to figure out. So Billy goes on and figures out the coordinates of where she is on the computer, and that getting there will not be easy because it's beyond their reach. But Tommy realizes, like, well, hey, like, we've been to dark dimensions before. Tommy goes on and mentions about the time that Billy had gone on to have this device to retrieve him in the past, or retrieve the green candle in the past. So why not just recreate what they had done before? And so Billy knows exactly what he's talking about. Billy goes on to mention about the portal comms. And the portal comms look drastically different here than they do in the past because they look very blue and red, and it's very different looking. So Billy mentions that he still has the portal comms in his laboratory and that he'll take them and they'll bring them to the park so that way the Rangers can go on and get to this dark dimension. So Bulk and Skull and Stone are all sleeping off at the park, and so the Rangers get uh, the portal comms to start working, and so Billy goes on to explain to Tommy about how this is all going to work. So Billy explains to Tommy about how the doors will be open, but only temporary. So, like, if you're going in there, try to be as fast as you can. Uh, but also, like, when Tommy goes in there, he takes his sweet ass time. So, luckily, the doors will conveniently work and be open for Tommy when he finally is able to get back. So, the Rangers all tell Tommy to good luck, and so Tommy makes his way into the portal. So back at the Moon Palace, so the bad guys are immediately thinking that they're all having success here, but then all of a sudden they do realize that Kimberly is being rescued. So Zed is of course angry. Zed goes on and sends all the Tangas out to the park to try and destroy the portal, so it'll make it difficult for Tommy to get back. So the Tangas all appear, and so the rest of the Rangers all call out for their ninja powers. Here we go on, and we oddly have Aisha that is doing some weird dance class with the Tangas, and the Tangas immediately fall for this. This was the funniest and strangest thing that they've ever gone on to do, and I just had a good time with it. I thought it was stupid, but also it's just like, no, like, let's do this dance class. Why not? So like Aisha is like guiding the Tangas, like, go Tangas, go to, and the Tangas like, yeah, let's dance it out, yeah, whatever we're doing, yeah, yeah, like high wing, yeah. I was like, what is going on here? So the Tangas are having a dance line going, and so Aisha just has all the Tangas all at once just fall down to the ground, and they immediately fall for this because they literally fall. So now all of a sudden we have Adam face off against the Tangas, and Adam all of a sudden becomes giant. Adam is now giant, and the Tangas have now realized that they are on some weird black padding, and then we kind of span out here, and we find that Adam is now giant, and he is now like holding the Tangas in his hand, and he's like shuffling them like dice in his hand, and so he throws them out of his hand to have them fall onto the ground. So now we cut to Tommy that's with Kimberly, and he's not morphed. You would think that these people, before they would go into dark dimensions, they would freaking morph. I would want to be sure that I am to be morphed before I go into these places, because you don't know what's going to happen. Anybody can just come from behind you, whip away your morph and be like, haha, sucker, and then you're powerless. Morph before you go into these places, folks. Jesus Christ, how many times do I have to say this? Like, come on. Anyways, so as Tommy makes his way to Kimberly, Zed makes his way to Tommy. It's like, hey, Tommy. You tried to double cross me, Tommy, huh? Well, now you and your princess will perish together. Tommy then goes on and turns, and then he goes on to morph. And so now we have the battle that we've been waiting for seasons. Zed versus Tommy. Who's gonna win? Yeah. Man, whenever I would go, like, that's the thing that they should have done more in Power Rangers. Have the most powerful bad guy face off against. We've had Void Knight faced off against the Rangers probably a plethora of times in Dino Fury, but I always really liked it when like the leader of like would get their hands dirty. Like I'm sure there's a number of other cases in a number of other seasons where like I'm sure uh Dino Charge, God, who is it? Who is the big bad villain in Dino Charge? Uh Sledge, yeah, Sledge. He ends up going on and he ends up getting his hands dirty in that show quite a bit of times. Um, Faces off against the Rangers at some point. But anyways, yeah, you would go on and you'd always like to see those battles because I think they're a lot more interesting. Uh, I was I was wanting also to have like Rita go on and fight the Rangers also, but that doesn't really happen either. I don't think it happens at all, does it? Like was there ever one real time where she does face off? Like, you would have to comment down and below and let me know. I don't think there ever was. Maybe in a video game somewhere, right? Anyways, so as Tommy and Zed start to spar off here, and it's the whole come and gets it and come get you sums and all kinds of these things. This whole back and forth banter, kind of really like slowing this down. We have Zed that goes on and takes Tommy down and then blasts him with his Zed staff. Tommy ends up telling Zed he'll never be allowed to win. The Tangas end up finding the portal com and end up thrusting down one of the pieces and start to destroy it. The Ninja Rangers all take down the Tangas and then find out that one of the portal comms had been destroyed. The Tangas, I guess the Tangas weren't completely defeated, so my bad. The Tangas would go on and fly off, and because their task was done. So they notice that one of the pieces had broken off of the portal com because a lot of the stuff on the show is severely fragile, and it breaks all the time anyways. So Billy is to hope that he can figure out a way to fix the portal com before Tommy needs to come back. So yeah, I guess this time it's like I hope Tommy does take a long time getting to Kimberly. So here's where Rita looks at Finster asking for a quick monster. You would think there'd be a possibility that they can go on and just bring back Fangelstein because he was just the monster that they just used. Uh, but they didn't. So instead, they go on and they end up using Sea Monster, which is not actually a monster that looks like it's from the sea. It's just a monster that has this coat that opens and has all these eyes on it. So that's why it's called Sea Monster. So, because Rita is with Finster saying, hey, give me a monster. And Finster ends up saying, like, I think I have the perfect one. So, as Billy has quickly figured out a way to make the portal comms back into operational, Billy and Adam are thinking about how there's a possibility how they can go on and possibly fix the new Zords to have them work on their side. Because it's almost dusk, and they may need to go on and work for Lord Zed. So, here's all of a sudden when Sea Monster appears. And so the Rangers go from the Ninjetti to then the Mighty Morphin, or the Mighty Morphin actual Ranger suits. Which is kind of cool, because I'm like, okay, cool, now we have a morphing sequence done from Ninjetti to the Rangers. So that was kind of cool. So, the Eye Monster goes on and uses its attack against the Rangers, and it seems that Rocky is to be so easily to break away from a monster's attack, which is kind of weird. I don't know what really the attack was, but if anything, Rocky did break away from this thing. That is kind of different. So, because Aisha was the only one before who could just break away from some attack that a monster was doing, but now it seems that Rocky has that same ability. So Rocky goes on and gets ever so close to the sea monster, and and closes back up his coat, and Rocky ends up telling the Rangers for them to go on, and tells them how to defeat the wave that was just hit by them. And so the Rangers are kind of breaking away from this attack that was put onto them. So Rita turns to Fencer and says that the monster needs glasses, and she can't wait any longer for Zed. So Rita is to tell Fencer, hey, we should go on and we should summon all the Zords, forcing the Rangers to now realize that they need to go on and they need to pilot them. So the Rangers go on and they notice all the big, huge, massive Zords in the background, and this goes on to leave Sea Monster to just disappear here after he's like, well, yeah, this is a sight for sore eyes. So Sea Monster disappears, and so the Rangers are just to the left to be looking at the Zords and realize how awesome they are, but also how this forces them to realize that they need to do what they had agreed to, and that they can't break their promise, right? They can't break a promise. So Rita then goes on to appear here and mentions about the battle technology and how they've caged the Falcon Zord, and also how they have these Zords powered by their precious Ninjor. So Rita reiterates what their promise was for them to pilot the Zords and destroy the city, and for the world to hate Power Rangers forever, and for them to serve Lord Zed and Rita. So, whoo! All right. So, because it's either pilot the Zords or Kimberly is to be toast. Instead of saying that she's going to be killed, she's going to die, because you can't really say that on a kids show. They end up just saying that she's toast. So the Rangers are hoping that they could still figure out some way to defeat Rita, but they give in to the demands and they start jumping into the Zords. Tommy is now going on and being flipped and flopped by Lord Zed here. Tommy realizes that the only thing that he can possibly have left to do is whip out Saba, and when he does so, he goes on and destroys Zed's staff, and Zed's staff turns into a snake. Zed is to now grab onto the snake, and it's just kind of wielding it and holding it. And so Zed realizes that, of course, since he no longer has his staff, he's kind of powerless against Tommy. So that goes on to leave Zed leaving here and to regroup. And Tommy then goes on to find out where the device is to stop from Kimberly getting her powers drained away from her. Because Tommy can't just go on and grab Kimberly because it won't work that way. So, because eventually his powers will get drained also. So, Tommy now goes on to this control panel that is near Kimberly, and he doesn't know exactly what thing of toggle of something to use to stop this device from doing what it's doing. So he just like, okay, I'll just press everything, because it's not like he's Billy or anything that could easily figure this out. So Tommy just hits all the toggles and it doesn't work. So we go to the old fashioned way of like, well, hey, if you can't figure out how to turn it off, then destroy it and then it'll turn off. So Tommy just starts bashing it with his fist, and that's what turns the machine off. Tommy then goes on and grabs Kimberly and is to be holding her, and he like the way he's like holding Kimberly is in a just weird, awkward way. Like instead of it like being like on his side, like a baby, like he's kind of like holding it like this, like he would like if you were to go on and like grab a log or something, like you would just like grab it like this. If you had a log in your hand, you'd like you grab it like this and like, okay, I'm gonna like carry her. Yeah, that's the way Tommy is like carrying Kimberly, and it looks so weird. Plus also it would look like it'd be like worse on his back carrying her out that way. But maybe that has something to do with his shield. That like yeah, it's very weird. So Tommy comes out of the portal and now he's holding Kimberly the right way, which is more like a baby. So Kimberly is to be dropped to the ground gently by Tommy, and so now Tommy goes on and calls the command center and needs the two of them to make their way out of there. We all of a sudden have Bulk, Skull, and Lieutenant Stone, who all start to wake up, and so now we go on to make our way back to the ancient Zords and the Rangers that are to be temporarily manning them, but have not yet to create any destruction within the city yet. So Tommy goes on to arrive and jumps into his own Zord and explains to the rest of the Rangers that Kimberly is safe and everything is fine now. So Rita and Zed are now at the Moon Palace, and basically Rita and Zed are now like just playing with Zed's snake. It's very strange. So they're just focusing on that. Like they don't give a about what's going on. So Zed goes on to explain to Rita that the White Ranger had destroyed his staff, and like I guess they won't be able to go on and be able to X their wands anymore and make their monster grow. So Zed goes on to explain that the Rangers haven't beat them yet because the Zords are to still at least to be controlled by him. So the Rangers will still have to go on and do what he wants them to. Cut to Billy. Billy is now going on and figuring out how to adjust these Zords so that way they have the Zords under their control. Once Billy does quickly go on and figure that out and say that the Zords are online, and of course we have Rocky that is like, "Hey, good work, Billy, but good work, man." Because of course we just, like, just Billy, can we slap your back anymore? Like, yeah, like I like it that they're giving Billy just so many praise here, but yeah, it's starting to get a little it's starting to get a little annoying here. So uh here's where Zed realizes like, oh my god, the Zords have been released from my power. Oh no, like so Tommy used to go on and tell Lord Zed, it's like, ha ha ha, like now the shoe's on a different foot, and now like, hey Reed and hey Zed, like, how about you go on? How about you release another monster for us to beat now? Ha ha ha. So Zed is to of course be upset with Tommy, and so Zed goes on and he steals Rita's staff, and he goes on to make the sea monster grow. Here's the thing. So why did it that Zed and Rita needed to have the whole X thing before? Like, I guess it doesn't make a difference. Like, Zed could have gone on and thrown out a growing grenade because he had so many of those, right? So Zed goes on and he grabs Rhea's wand and he makes the monster grow. So I'm kind of curious how exactly they'll go on and when will they go on and they'll bring back Zed's staff without us even thinking about it. Like, oh yeah, like what happened to, like, they brought Zed's staff back? Anyways, so Sea Monster goes on and he becomes giant, and so we come to find that Sea Monster goes on and does a number of attacks on the Rangers, and so we start to have like the Falcon Zord that comes in, the Falcon Ancient Zord, and goes on and attacks the Sea Monster. We have the rest of the Rangers that are kind of pushed back here, and they go on to kind of give their praise to Tommy as they have nothing else better to do. Because they really don't. So Billy goes on and initiates for them to go into Ancient Zord combat, and they end up turning into the Shogun Megazord. So we have the Rangers all in the cockpit, and the attack is to supposedly hit the monster right between the eyes. All the eyes. So they end up doing this like weird, goofy, like feather attack like thing to hit the sea monster with, because all we see is these like feathers coming in. It's a very weird, goofy attack. But then all of a sudden we have the Shogun Megazord that has its sword that bursts into flame. I'm like, wow. Like, I wish that this sword was actually just cooler looking, but I do like that it bursts into flame. That's pretty awesome. So the sword is now in flame, and then the sword goes on and it does this swipe, and it does this weird salute, which is weird. And then, like, the monster, of course, goes down. So now, like, back at the Moon Palace, Zed is going on and recounting all the things that he has failed upon. That his staff is now broken, that his Zords have been stolen from under him, and this job isn't fun anymore, and it's just making him miserable, and the whole time in this episode, I'm like, wait a minute, what about Ninjor? Like, Ninjor is still captured, and Rita ends up going on and ends up bringing that up. Rita's like, well, hey, don't fret, like, we still kidnapped Ninjor. So shouldn't they have honestly have gone on and, like, when Kimberly was fine, when Kimberly was brought back to the command center, couldn't Rita and Zed still could have gone on and said, hey, wait a minute, Rangers, like, you still have to go on and still do what we are telling you to say, because we still have another trump card, which is Ninja. Like, we have him, like, we kidnapped him too. Like, I guess you guys have just completely forgotten about that now, have you? And then the Rangers would have had to have gone on and wreaked havoc all over town, because it's like, oh no, like, I can't believe we have to do this, because, like, so they don't give a about Ninja. Like, Power Rangers don't give a about Ninja, obviously. Like, if Ninja gets killed or died or whatever, they don't care about him. But Kimberly, they cared about Kimberly. So that just says a lot. So Rita and Zed are to realize that since Ninja is to have been captured, that the Power Rangers are technically in a very weakened state. So now cut back to Bulk and Skull and Stone. So Stone is to go on and be putting a thumb in his mouth, because he is to just wake up from sleeping, and he all of a sudden sees this dragon flag in front of his face, assuming that it's a monster. Lieutenant Stone freaks out and says it's a monster and starts running away, not knowing exactly what it was. Just sees some weird, goofy looking monster thing and runs off stupidly. Bulk and Skull go on to want to explain at first what this was, but then Bulk realizes, oh, wait a minute. Like, if Lieutenant Stone had gone on to see a monster, let's just say that he had seen a monster so that way we don't lose our badges. So Bulk and Skull pretend to run away like they had saw a monster too, and it just looks stupid. There's at one point where Skull jumps over this guy and sees this couple at this picnic, and then he like shakes their hand, and then he walks away. It's like, yeah, Skull, ever the player, right? Just wants to like, hey. I thought that was kind of funny. So back at the command center, Kimberly goes on and thanks all the Rangers for their help, and and then Kimberly goes on and thanks Tommy specifically because eventually he saved her from that cave. Kimberly goes on to say that she's a little tired, but she's okay. Zordon goes to explain to Kimberly that the Rangers are going to go on and give some of their power up to Kimberly so that way her powers won't be as severely drained as they have been. And that's going to be their plan for right now. Until Kimberly can get her power coin back. So, and eventually, yeah, like, eventually things will happen in the story that will lead to, yeah, like, Kimberly's not going to get her powers back. Kimberly's not going to go on and be able to be a Pink Ranger again. It just won't happen, sadly enough. Anyways, so so Adam goes on and asks Zordon about the old Zords, if they still can be able to use them. Zordon is to confirm that since Zed and Rita still have the Falcon Zord, which they haven't used yet for whatever reason, that because the one Zord is to be captured, the rest of the Zords are unoperational. But if anything, they have the new Zords anyways, so who cares? So, but if anything, the Rangers are like, well, hey, we got to get that back somehow. So Zordon relays to the Rangers that their ancient Zords that they had just gotten are to actually go on and now to be called Shogun Zords. And that they will serve them well, because we always have to say that. So the Rangers say that they're all back in business and they put their hands in, and so now we cut to Tommy and Kimberly at the beach. I think this is to be probably soon wrapping up this episode. So Kimberly is going on to talk to Tommy because Tommy had done this several times in the past, where when several times when Tommy would say, hey, yeah, my powers are fading, like I think this is the end for me, like I feel it coming, like I had this dream and I was going to lose my powers, dot 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 dot. So again, this is Kimberly kind of being Tommy again here. So Kimberly's going on and telling Tommy about how she feels that it's getting to the end, and it's getting to the end of her being a Pink Ranger. And Tommy says, like, well, hey, like, you can still share your powers with us. And Kimberly's like, well, yeah, like, for right now, but when it's over, it's over. And Kimberly's really scared. So Tommy, if anything, like, knows that Kimberly has gone on to kind of be on his side whenever he's lost his powers. So Tommy goes on to say, it's like, well, hey, like, remember when I lost my powers, and you said that'll all be okay. It's like, well, yeah, like everybody just kind of eventually kind of needs that reassurance that it's like, well, hey, like it's all gonna be all right in the end. And if anything, like, Kimberly realizes that she'll always have her friends. She'll always have this team, no matter what happens. And that Tommy's to tell Kimberly that she will always have him. He will always have she'll always have Tommy. And Kimberly ends up saying thanks, and then they go to credits. The credits is to go on and just have the villains all in the Moon Palace and all dancing. Because why not? So here's where we go on and we have Follow That Cab. This is the Krabby Cabby episode. So now we're back to finally seeing Ernie after some passing of episodes. I don't want to just keep poking at that. Like, because I realize, like, there's so many characters to have to pay in the show. But yeah, I really like it whenever they have Ernie. Like, it just, like, there's something about it that just feels right about Ernie being involved in episodes. I don't know what it is. Like, maybe if some people have that feeling, like, maybe it just kind of gets back to like the early parts of the show, or like it's kind of like the show just kind of feels different without certain people there. Like, a lot of people have that feeling when Jason, Trini, and Zach are no longer on the show, about how the show just feels different now, and a lot of people end up a lot of people end up getting so upset when those three people left, and it was just never the same to them. And I get that. Like, I can kind of get that feeling. But anyways, I just have to move on also and just keep covering these episodes, because it seems that a lot of people are to go on and really like Mighty Morphin season 3, evidently, for some odd reason, and I don't know why. But hey, that's cool, because that really goes on and is to really just be like, okay, I can just keep doing this, and it makes sense to just keep covering this stuff. So that's fantastic. Thank you. I'm grateful for everybody checking these things out. But I probably should have said that in the very beginning of this episode, because no one will probably watch it 3 hours later and hear me say any of this. So, anyways, we still have Catherine as a guest star. It's funny. Anyways, so at the outside of the youth center, we have we have Ernie that goes on and is to have a bowl of milk to bring to Kimberly's cat. Kimberly goes on and takes the bowl of milk and hands it to PC. I'm not sure quite why Kimberly is to go on and just have this cat on her and not have some kind of leash or something, but like, I guess they probably just consider that this cat is probably an outside cat. But here's the thing. So wouldn't they be like afraid that this cat could get loose? Like, they've already had that problem so many countless times now. But I guess just Aisha and Kimberly just like having this cat by them, even just when it's to be to the detriment of losing this cat again. But whatever, I guess it just like, it's bugging me. But it's a show. We have to keep figuring out how to write this cat in, as well as also to keep writing in Catherine cat thing. Anyways, so we go on to Kimberly sitting at this table, and Tommy goes on and sits alongside her. Kimberly all of a sudden notices that there is to be this world famous coach, Gunther, that is to arrive in Angel Grove to start scouting people. Kimberly is all giddy about it and hopes that there's a way that she can go on and meet this guy. And Tommy's asking Kimberly, hey, you thinking about trying out? And Kimberly says, yeah, it's a dream of mine since I was a little girl to meet a guy like this. So, and then all of a sudden we see the cat in the background with its glowing red eyes, like, ah. So now cut to the Moon Palace. So, so after some smack talking to be done between Zed, Rito, and everybody, because there's just a lot of it going on. Here's where Rito comes in with the plan. Rito goes on and eventually asks Zed about the whole plan about them going on and having one of the Rangers become a monster, and for then the monster to then fight off against all the other Rangers. And at first, Rita goes on and says that that's a stupid idea, but then eventually Zed is to say that, wait a minute, maybe there's something there. Maybe it would work. All right. Like, so, and Rito goes on and says, like, yeah, like, that's because Zed is a smart one, or Ed is a smart one. So, we now cut back to the outdoor youth center, and so Kimberly is again still talking about this Gunther Schmidt guy and how legendary he is. And so Tommy is asking Kimberly, it's like, well, hey, you should go on, you should meet him. And so Kimberly's like, well, yeah, I should go. But if anything, she's realizing that, like, well, wait, PC is there. So Kimberly goes on to ask Ernie if he can watch over the cat, and Ernie's happy to do so. But then all of a sudden, as Kimberly walks away, they start looking for the cat, and all of a sudden, it's disappeared. Tommy goes on and asks Ernie if he had gone on to CPC, and Ernie naturally assumes that the cat has made its way probably in the kitchen to probably scrounge for some kind of food. We find out that PC is to turn back into Catherine, and Catherine is to speak to Rita. Kat is to relay to Rita how Kimberly is going to go on and meet up with this famous gymnast coach, and Rita is taking that as a way of like, well, yeah, like we're going to go on, we're going to take this idea, and we're going to have it be that Kimberly is going to be the one that's going to be housed in this monster, and not be a monster, but be housed in one. So, because Rita says, yeah, we're going to transform Kimberly into a monster, not as one of one. Anyways, so cut to now. Bulk Skull and Lieutenant Stone. Lieutenant Stone is mentioning to both Bulk and Skull that there's been a plethora of different car thefts lately, and for anything to just keep their eyes peeled of any suspicious suspects or any kind of unsavory characters, and then walks off. Bulk and Skull are going on, and they're being confident here, and they're saying like, well, yeah, like with us on duty, like suspicious characters, like yeah, like the citizens of Angel Grove can rest easy, like. So all of a sudden in the background, there is obviously this guy who's this like trench coating, shady looking character, and he's carjacking into this car, and this is to all be going on while both Bulk and Skull's backs are to be turned to him. So all of a sudden, we then have this car thief, and he drops his bag and he drops some of his tools onto the ground so that way he can get into this car. So as the thief starts to get into the car, both Bulk and Skull notice, hey man, you dropped your sack on the ground. Oh, hey, yeah, you also dropped all these tools on the ground also. And so he gets into the car, and you can see that the thief, like, was obviously sweating because, like, his sweat is just pouring down his face. Makeup, you didn't catch that? Come on. What do we pay you for? So, I'm joking. So, the car thief drives away, and Bulk and Skull think nothing of it. And then Kimberly runs out and is like, hey, that's my car! Like, he stole my car! Ah! And then Bulk and Skull are like, oh, I guess that was the car thief. So, Bulk and Skull realize that they need a car, and they need one quick. All of a sudden, there ends up having this cab that just appears out of nowhere. And so, Bulk and Skull race to the cab and commandeer it. You would think that they would just get in the back of the cab car and tell the cab like, hey, follow that, but it wouldn't have been very good, because if anything, you would just have this random cabbie in the car. So yeah, Bulk and Skull just had to commandeer the car and have Kimberly sit in the back seat. So Zed goes on and uses his weird visor vision here, and notices that Bulk and Skull and Kimberly are within this cab. And so since Rita, so Zed is to go on and notice that Rita and Catherine are talking here, and that the plan is to transform the cab into a monster here. And eventually this monster will go on to destroy the whole lot of them. The next thing we see is that Rita is turning to Catherine and calling her a bad girl repetitively. All of a sudden, Catherine is to have this pop into her brain about the time when she was in school and she was in Australia, because the Australian flag is in the background. And there is to be a teacher that I don't quite know is. I would have to kind of re-reference back in the episode if she has an accent or not. So, in Australia, Catherine is to have got on to have been given an award for how she's helping families in her community. And so Catherine ends up walking up as a younger, and I mean younger, version of herself that eventually we'll see in episodes later on. And so this teacher goes on and hands this sash or this award to Catherine, and the teacher says how proud she is of Catherine and that she's a good girl, evil girl, because this is Rita now. And so Catherine always says, I'm not evil, I'm good. And Rita is just like, no. Like if anything, your evil is starting or your good is starting to show. So Rita's like, well, hey, I'll fix that. So Rita goes on and forces Catherine to be back evil again, and then Catherine says, evil, I am evil. So Rita's like, okay, good. So now back at the youth center, all the Rangers are now looking for this cat, and of course they can't find it. So they're possibly thinking that maybe they should probably call Aisha to maybe see if PC had ended up at the animal shelter, that maybe someone had found it. But eventually they do go on and they do find PC, and Ernie grabs the cat and it's like, okay, how about we go on and we make this cat a sardine milkshake? and then they walk off. So As Bulk and Skull are driving with Kimberly to try and chase uh, over the car thief, honestly, if I were Kimberly, I don't think I would go on and I would trust Bulk and Skull behind the wheel. But maybe Kimberly has no other choice here. And even also at one point, Kimberly is getting a little frustrated because she naturally assumes that both Bulk and Skull has lost this thief anyways. So we now have Finster that makes his way into the Moon Palace to hand over this device. This transformer uh, apparatus is what is to have this be called, or vehicular transformer apparatus, whatever that means. So Fencer goes on and just hands Rita and Zed this huge, massive hunk of device. And so what ends up happening here is Zed is just sling this thing over his shoulder and blast away at this device. The device does go on to hit this taxi and turn it into this monster called the Krabby Cabby. So the Krabby Cabby starts wreaking havoc all over town as Bulk and Skull and Kimberly are like it's a lot of that going on. So Skull ends up saying that he's going to be sick, and Bulk is pleading for him not to. So the alarms are going off into the command center. So they realize that, of course, that they have to call upon the Rangers after they realize that the Krabby Cabby has wreaking havoc upon the town. They also activate what is to be like these X-ray scanners, and they notice that Bulk and Skull and Kimberly are inside the cabby. So the Rangers are to be called, and of course Tommy answers as per usual. Alpha and Zordon relay to the Rangers that they need to teleport to the command center immediately and state that this is an emergency. When is it not an emergency? When is it ever not an emergency? So Adam even, like, here's a smart thing here. Adam goes on and says, well, wait a minute. Like, Kimberly and Aisha aren't with us. And so, like, well, hey, we'll go on and we'll contact Aisha. But if anything, the emergency is actually Kimberly. So that's why we called you here. Or that's why we called you. So Zed and Rita are going on back in the Moon Palace to assume that, again, another plan going into place, that if anything, this will destroy the Rangers. And will also take down Kimberly in the process. The Rangers all make their way to the command center, and they seem to be already morphed. Because I don't remember there ever being a morphing sequence here. Maybe there was, and I missed it somewhere. So, or maybe I really messed this up. I have no idea. So we go on here to have the Power Rangers, and they've made their way to the command center. And here's where they go on to find out that they have the shark cycles. Because eventually they're going to go on and they're going to face off against this Krabby Cabby, and there's no way for them to face off against the monster that is consistently moving here. So the Rangers all turn and see their shark cycles, and they're all to be very wowed by it and say, wow, Alpha, you've been really busy. And so it's like, yeah. So They go on to explain the connection of the sharks to the Rangers, even though it really just doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, whatever. Like, there is no Shark Ranger, so it just has to be whatever it needs to be for the show. So, anyways, so Alpha goes on and states to the Rangers that with the cycles, these cycles have all been equipped uh, with also just kind of weaponry, so that way they can use whenever they need it to be used. So they all realize that they all need to go out on the field, so they all appear with on the streets in their shark cycles, and they're chasing after Krabby Cabby. So we now have a specific song just for the shark cycles for some goofy reason. So the Rangers try to go on and they're trying to chase after Krabby Cabby. At one point, like, they make the plan for Adam to try to get ahead of it, but like nothing really ever works. Krabby Cabby goes on and chases is to be chased after the Rangers, and there's no way for them to plan anything that can get this cab to stop. At some point, the Krabby Cabby goes on and releases some smog uh, from its rear kind of pipes behind it, going on to have all the Rangers to be hit with all this fog and all this smog, and so we have the Rangers that just kind of wean off a little bit. And again, we have Bulk and Skull and Kimberly like, ooh, they're all screaming and stuff. So the Rangers are also realizing that more than likely what they're going to have to do is that they're probably going to have to just keep having to chase after this cab. But there isn't much that they can do to try and use like weapons or anything to attack this thing. There's not much that they can do to try to do anything but just continue to just chase after this thing, because they also have to realize that Alpha has to give them the signal that it's okay for them to do anything. Because Alpha is going on in the command center, and Alpha is trying to use this device to have this molecular scramble thing to get Bulk and Skull and Kimberly out of the cab. Alpha will have gone on to state that this device is kind of difficult because one person is easy, but three people it's more difficult to try and get out of this cab and not have their DNA be scrambled together. So back in the Moon Palace, Rita and Zed are kind of happy at this point because they realize that the Rangers are in their trap, and it's time for the monster to be grown into a much bigger size. So now that the monster is gigantic and the Rangers are to kind of hold off and kind of pause and put on brakes of their shark cycles, the Rangers all go on to realize that they need to call for their Zords. So they do. So all the Rangers all jump into their new Zords, and the Krabby Cabby ends up like crashing into all this stuff, and it's actually pretty fun. So here is where Alpha is to go on and be able to use this device to finally figure out a way to have Bulk and Skull and Kimberly to be taken out of the Krabby Cabby. But weirdly enough, Alpha is just in the command center doing this. Like, shouldn't Alpha or shouldn't one of the Power Rangers have this on the field? I'm just a little confused. So Alpha goes on through the command center and has Bulk and Skull and Kimberly just go flying out of the Krabby Cabby. All three of them fall into the street or the road, and both Bulk and Skull grab Kimberly and say, hey, they need to take cover to get away from this attack. So now that Bulk and Skull and Kimberly are all free, the Rangers are all free to take apart Krabby Cabby. So Krabby Cabby, again, from its rear pipes, goes on and releases this smog to try and take out all the Rangers. And Tommy ends up calling for the Shogun Megazord. The Shogun Megazord ends up getting into wait. Little confused here. Yeah, because they call for the Shogun Megazord, and they end up doing an attack, but then they also go on and they're. I'm so confused. Because they call for the Shogun Megazord, but then we see that there's a very different plethora of different Zords here. I'm so confused. Because the Zords are all separate. So they go on and they do this attack and then wipe out the Krabby Cabby. So Kimberly is now off in the distance praising the Rangers for what they'd gone on to do. And here's where Zed goes on and complains to Rita about how bad that plan was. We are now back with Bulk and Skull. Bulk and Skull are to go on and find the car thief adjusting something with Kimberly's car. Bulk and Skull go on to grab the thief and arrest him, and the next thing we see is the Rangers on the outsides of the youth center. They go on and they ask Kimberly if she was at all able to meet up with the coach, and Kimberly ends up saying no. Like, she'll just have to go on and she'll just have to meet up with him at the tryouts. And so they go on and they write off Aisha here because she's not in the episode seemingly whatsoever. They go on and state that Aisha had to just make her way back to the animal shelter. And if anything, Aisha is supposedly say off camera that for what had happened with Kimberly today, that eventually dinner's on her. So the next thing we see is a honk honk, and Kimberly rushes out to find out that Bulk and Skull have retrieved her car. Kimberly is to go on and hug Bulk and Skull, and eventually also PC returns. As soon as they go on and they spot PC, they go on and they weirdly end the episode with them talking like, hey, wouldn't you wish that you were a cat? Yeah, you can go on and just eat and sleep all day. And all of a sudden they cut to the cat, and she has these red eyes, not green, red, so they're very inconsistent about what the eye color of the cat is. And then they go to credits. So the end credit scene is just the shark cycles, and they're driving around. and like they're cutting to the Power Rangers' faces and they're not saying anything. So that's what wraps up this episode because I'm gonna get out of here because it's 3 hours and a good chunk of change. If anything, I'm kind of tempted to want to kind of correct myself at some point of that last battle there. So I am kind of tempted to do that. But if anything, uh, like if for whatever reason, if I pause this video here and if I kind of go back to kind of retrace my steps, like for whatever reason, if this kicks out, I'm definitely not going to go on, and I'm definitely not going to try and just edit seconds of footage back onto this. So if this cuts out, then my apologies. But I'm gonna recheck what happened in that last battle. But if I don't get on this video, I will probably maybe get in the next video. But either way, I'm gonna pause here just to check up on that. Okay. So the reason why I was like, okay, I'm so confused on that last battle, the Krabby Cabby, is because they weirdly in this fight, because I was just like, why is this so different? So in this battle, they go on and instead of going into an actual Megazord, they end up doing a what looks like just a pyramid move. Like all the Zords stack onto one another and then they just spin around. So I was just so confused. I'm like, wait a minute. Like they call up for the Megazord, but there isn't the Megazord. I think because I just probably didn't go on and I didn't have like just one certain thing that helped me figure this out. So I got very confused. So what happened there was, yeah, they stack like pyramids and then they just spin around in this weird like tornado attack, and then that's to be the thing that goes on and just weirdly takes out the Krabby Cabby in this episode. So with that said, like yeah, that covers a, at least a good assortment of basis. I'm sorry that I had to go on and just kind of recheck that. Like there's sometimes in certain episodes where I'm just like, what the happened? Because I just straight up just don't have as good as retention of memory of every single thing, especially when there's 5 episodes that I have to cover. Like it's very hard for me to retain everything. Um, because like I was like, okay, why is it that all the Zords and they just called it? But yeah. So, anyways, let's wrap this up here because it's gonna be too long, anyways. But if anything, yeah, I'm grateful for everybody still checking these things out. Because yeah, like I get how long-winded they are. I get that people may just check out the first X number of minutes of these things. I'm really appreciative lately that people are actually like liking these videos and thumbing them up. I'm not saying that anybody actually needs to do any of that. Like I appreciate that anybody is taking the time to do those things. Uh, like I'm not asking anybody to go on and do any of that stuff. Like if people like, I don't want to force a comment, a like, a nothing. Like if anything, like your views should always be enough. Um, because if anything, every view just continues to help out this channel. If I find a new person out there and they're willing to subscribe, then that helps out the channel. But I'm not going to like I think there was a point when I would go on and I'd be like doing YouTube where I felt like I was kind of like begging for all this stuff, but like I'm not gonna do that now. Like, because if anything, it's like, hey, it's either that you like the content or that you don't. Like I have no I have no delusions of thinking that like, yeah, I'm the best at it. I'm the greatest at it. No. Like I'm just thinking it's like, hey man, like we all have our different ways of doing this kind of content. And yeah, um like if anything, like I can just go on and just say that um mine is to be so very long-winded that I completely understand. Um certain people's just attention spans. And believe me, I look at like how long people would watch the videos for, so I get um, really just like I probably could go on and do shorts, and probably people would like those a lot more because that seems to be maybe a lot more where retention is. But if anything, yeah. Uh, I don't know. I just like this way of doing things. I just like the uh this just kind of long form, and I don't know, like eventually uh people are watching the content, people are subscribing, and I am grateful. Hopefully we'll go on and eventually at some point um get to figure out what is the best content to get into. Like right now, um I'm really just trying to figure out where to go with Star Trek. Like, if anything, Power Rangers was kind of easy because Power Rangers right away it told me where to go, like what seasons to cover. It tells me all the time where to go. For Star Trek, I'm still like I have no idea. Like I'm still like I'm drawing blanks in that. Um like I don't know if I really want to go on. Like I'm not exactly sure I want to go on and go into Star Trek shows yet. Like I'm trying as much as possible to pull back, trying not to invest into shows because I want to keep uh, most of the time for show stuff to be like this. Um, because I feel if I'm doing too many shows, that I feel that like I don't know, like some people would probably want to go on and be like, "Hey man, why are you doing Star Trek and why aren't you doing Power Rangers more?" Like so it's like if I feel like if I'm just doing a movie instead of another show, like yeah, like in my brain, that's what I'm just thinking. That some people are just kind of upset that I'd focus on another show instead of doing more of this. Which I get it, like, but also uh, like doing shows also it's very it's very finicky like what is going to do well. Like sometimes people just like certain episodes or some people will just like everything of one season. Yeah, it's just, it's very it's very hit and miss. But anyways, I'm gonna get my way out of here before it gets to 4 hours, so thank you for watching this. uh I like for me to just say here any of the strategies that I'm to kind of go on to say here, it is not a strategy. Like I wish I could say I really thought this through. In some ways, it probably feels like I have, but like a lot of times, I'm just like, okay, like I have all these plans. I have like hundreds of things to just kind of can rattle off at any moment to say like this is what I can do. Um, but yeah, but there is no like real thought put into this channel, and that's the biggest problem. Um, like I have no way to best communicate altogether anything. Um, but in some ways, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep trying, and hope for the best. So, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.